Reveille, reveille.
Look at us now, tip to...
Ooh, Jesus.
Shout out to Morning Kombat.
Do you want a margarita? Yes! My God!
It's us doing what we love. It's time to bang. Oh, yeah, Monday morning. Get fired up live and direct from the Meadowlark Studios in Manhattan. This is the best damn combat sports show. Period. Yeah, it's Morning Combat. Here we go, Monday, October 21st, 2024. Brian Campbell, your host. Luke Thomas, the leading analyst in all of combat sports today, is my partner. And we got a pretty damn good show for the people today. Would you say that?
Who has a vape I can smoke? Surely one of the degenerates who works here. What flavor is that, Ken?
Watermelon.
Oh,
He's got watermelon.
Ken, we might have to fight for that vape.
I don't think if you guys share the vape, you might as well just kiss at that point, right? I mean, that's where we're
Ken,
at.
do you want to kiss?
Yeah, there it is. There it is. A big weekend in combat sports from not just the PFL having their biggest card in history to a UFC Apex card. How about what went down in Orlando, PBC? Tim Tszyu got sent down. We'll have a lot on that. We'll look ahead to 308, which is the first and last title defense in Ilia Topuria's career.
Could be. That's true. It could be.
I thought I was presenting that as an attack, an insult.
I know. That's what you do.
You just shielded it.
That's right. You were expecting me to bite on the feint. I don't bite on the feints.
You parried the punches and rolled with it. Did you have a nice weekend taking your wife to metal concerts?
So we had how was the weather in Connecticut? Was it good this weekend?
I don't know. I was in Orlando.
Oh, that's right. You were being a bad father and husband. I'm teasing. The weather in your nation's capital was perfect.
Ooh.
So we were outside both days.
Was there those pink flowers out, or is that only in the spring?
You mean the cherry blossoms?
Yes, they're very
That's
famous.
in the early kind of spring.
Okay.
Yeah. We're now in fall.
Thank you for
We're
that
on the
update.
other
Thank
side
you.
of that.
Yes, okay.
But what I was going to say is we went to the Hirschhorn exhibit. There was a Banksy and Basquiat exhibit, so I took my daughter.
Matt Snyder loves Banksy.
Does he?
Daniel Snyder's nephew over there? Yeah.
He hasn't read a book since high school. What are you talking about?
All right. Well, he's,
No, I'm teasing.
he's
I'm
a
teasing.
country
That's
club
great.
crypto guy.
But the one I'm trying to make is we went outside. We were on the National Mall. It was great. And then the next day I took Tukey to a picnic.
Ooh.
That was awesome. Beautiful weather. We played Frisbee. Took her to the creek. It was awesome. Shouts to Rock Creek Park. And then I did go to an Opeth concert. You ever heard of Opeth?
No.
First of all, in the merch line for my wife, it was for her birthday. Got some MK donks who came up to me.
No way.
Swear
At
to
the
God.
Opeth concert.
At the Opeth concert, swear to God.
We have dark souled fans, you think?
Yes.
Okay.
Shocker, white guys with beards. I mean, that's our audience.
Definitely Luke fans. Thank you.
And then we saw the show. I don't know how to explain Opeth. They have, I would call it progressive metal, but like they've done all different stuff, dude. Like they went on how Metallica went on this journey and they kind of like stopped doing thrash.
Yes. Then they were playing Tin Pans for St. Anger, you know?
They had a similar kind of journey where they just got into like melodic progressive rock music.
Okay.
Not even like it was.
So you're like, you can't even kill to this music. It's horrible.
So half their fan base left them. They split on them. Now they've come back around and they do a mix of the two.
Okay.
So my wife kind of likes more of the early and now newer stuff. But dude, like different metal fans do different things. We talked about the guys who row on the fucking ceiling or the floor. This event was at the Warner Theater, so it had seats. Like whatever.
Yes.
Everyone stood up the entire fucking time and didn't sit down. So I just sat for the whole show. And my wife's like, "You're not going to stand for the show?" I'm like, I didn't pay for standing room.
Wow.
I paid for a fucking, they're sitting in the balcony.
The only people that sit at metal shows are the ones performing abortions usually.
You can stand for that. I'm just pointing out, what the fuck is the point? And by the way, I want to say something with this music. Hold on. This kind of metal music, there's different kinds. This kind is not the kind you can fucking dance to.
There's no dancing in metal.
It's just a bunch of skinny nerds who, if they weren't shooting up schools,
all right.
just doing this number.
All right.
Hold on. They're just doing this number. Bitch, you can do that sitting down. Have a fucking seat.
Who put cocaína in your cafe?
I'm so fucking tired.
Yes, yes.
I'm so fucking tired. That alarm went off at 5 this morning, and I was about to stab someone.
I'm so happy that you didn't bring a Bang or Pink Monster energy drink with you today.
I almost brought this, which is a cup of coffee with a shot of espresso in it. It's called a red eye. The lady at Starbucks didn't know that. Also, she spelled my name Tell the audience what you spelled my name as.
Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
This is 2 times in a row with 2 different people at the Starbucks. Didn't know how to spell the biblical term Luke. It's a coffee with espresso. I was going to get this plus a monster on top of it because I'm so fucking tired. But then my heart might explode.
Well,
and you
I've
would make
got
comments.
the cure to your tiredness here. I've collected some samples from a great company called Let's Fucking Go Energy, and they send these dip packets that
Little
are
bandits.
that have no tobacco in them, but they're little bandits of
Can I see one?
healthy
Oh, my
and
fucking
clean
shoulder hurts so
caffeine. I
bad.
brought you this orange flavor to take home with
How
you.
does it work?
You can try one right here, Luke. You put it in. It's called LF Go. Let's Fucking Go Energy. It's just clean caffeine, good stuff, and
God, I haven't fucking
you put
drank
that
in
dip
forever.
packet in. I gave something to Long Island Luke too. You did it right now.
I am not dipping right now. I was just explaining to everyone
I
these
forgot
things.
how to hit that thing. There we
So,
go.
but you're trained not to swallow when you do dip packets in high school. So here you got to swallow, Luke. It's a lot like pornography.
I don't know what kind of pornography you're watching. How's it taste?
You got to try one. Here,
So
taste
wait,
one.
do you spit it out?
You put it in your mouth and you suck on it with your tongue.
I'm sure we should be doing this in the middle of the fucking show. Hold on. Do you swallow the juice?
Yes, you swallow the juice. Let's fucking go. It's healthy for you. All right. It wakes you up right away. It's like what Conor McGregor does, but without the
BC, you are aware this expired months ago, are you not?
It still works though.
BC, this expired in May. we're almost in November.
Not phased. Not phased by it. Not phased. Still caffeine. Still works, Luke.
Holy shit, you are a degenerate. Let me smell. Oh, it smells. It does
One
smell.
out of every 10 packets has heroin in it.
You know what
so
it
you gotta
smells
just
like?
roll the
It
lid.
smells like dehydrated, like Monster Energy drink. Yeah, I'm gonna have one of those a little later
All
in
right.
the show.
All right, let's effing go. We got a great show for you today. You can buy some merch, by the way, like this fantastic bomber jacket
Yeah,
Luke
yeah,
is
yeah.
wearing by going to morningcombat.store. Wow, you see how perky and happy I am after one Let's Effing Go packet?
Yeah. So again, you don't chew it; you just suck on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like mine.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. So,
I was trying to be like, should I make that joke or
No,
will we
no.
get fired?
you can follow us. There you go. Perfect timing, Long Island Luke, on the socials below. Let's bring in the third member of our team from an Australian men's ball bag. It is Luke Nocita
That's a lot of information I didn't need.
of the Main Card Minute.
You're like, from his all the way from not Jersey City, but his father's nutsack.
From the same town as Matt Frivola, Long Island, did you have a nice weekend with the Main Card Minute?
I had a great weekend. We had another perfect week, 4 for 4 on the main card.
So
Shout
do
out.
you know what happens when he has a perfect week?
No.
Tell him.
I ripped the Tyson bong. We do a couple dabs. I did a funnel on this shit. We got crazy on this one. But
It's like a frat house, Luke.
It's a frat house. That's like a fucking methadone clinic.
dude, well, Rob Font, I said if Rob Font wins here as a plus 360 dog, I'll do a funnel, and he did it. I had to.
I have to tell you, your call on that was good because I did think Kyler Phillips was going to win straight up, but like when you told me what the odds were, again, what was it, plus 360?
60.
Dude, we said it on Friday
Yeah.
that was out to fucking lunch. Sure enough, you nailed
Boston
it. Great
Rob
call.
coming through there. That's Mike Owens Media's guy right there. He's in the camp.
Rob
you know
Font?
he's in Team
Well,
Font
dude, so
camp.
he left Tyson Chartier. I think they're still friends, but he worked with Faraz Zahabi
Yes.
for this fight.
Tyson was still in his corner, but Frost was the head coach.
Okay, but like they clearly is a realignment
Yeah.
in the camp.
We were saying if Rob had lost, is that the end of New England Cartel? They're kind of on a huge skid between him and Cater.
I don't know what Cater's up to next.
Yeah,
But yeah, you're right.
They should just fight each other at this point.
Fucking get it over with.
I did see you did an appearance on Duty's podcast there. She loves the gloves.
Yes. She's going to Abu Dhabi for the first time in her UFC.
Christina, yeah.
Yes.
She's got a good backstory.
Anyway, she's out of Georgia, and we talked about UFC 308. Obviously, the Georgians they downplay his Spanishness.
They should. He's
I understand. I don't know how to navigate that either. I'm not here to say what he is or isn't.
in the Georgian hierarchy with Dolidze and Merab. Is it Topuria one, or is because he's moonlighting in Spain? Do they put him at number 2?
It does seem like Topuria is a little bit higher.
They
of
love the
status.
shit out of Merab, rightfully
They
so.
definitely do. Don't get me. I don't think it's like a distant 2, but I do think Topuria is like the bigger figure.
So
of the
okay,
two.
so then you got Dolidze 3, Cheyenne 4.
She like naturalized and naturalized Georgian very quickly. I know we're going to talk about it. The Tim Tszyu fight.
Yeah.
How many communicable diseases did you come back from Orlando with?
No, shout out to the Carib Royale Resort for their hospitality. It was a very fun weekend. A lot of it was an Australian pay-per-view, so like Aussie TV was there. My guy Ben Damon, a lot of other folks. There was a lot of Australians that traveled for this event. It was pretty cool.
Tim Tszyu didn't look great.
No.
That was a rough night for PBC.
Well, yeah, I mean, in the short term, probably, yeah.
Definitely in the short term.
But it was a very good triple header. A lot of action in that one. Little fight of the year contender in the first fight. Okay.
By the way, I've noticed the Brian Campbell experience. Brian, set up this card for us. By the way, you did great. You did great. I mean, there's no doubt. BC, I'll say this about BC. He is a fucking idiot. However, you're very good at commentary.
Thank you.
But the one little thing I've noticed, because I've, first of all, called a couple fights with you, and I've seen a million of these. If BC's on the card, promoters, if BC's on the card,
yeah,
he's going to tell the audience they have a fight of the year candidate on that card.
Because they do, and I'll help will it. I'll help will it to be one. All right, there you go.
Certainly an upset of the year.
No doubt about it.
Might be an upset. Legitimately might be the upset of the year.
What a breakthrough performance from old Bakrahm Murtazaliev. More on that to come, but let's hit it off the top with the biggest event in PFL / Smart Cage history. Went down in Saudi Arabia on Saturday. Battle of the Giants was the PFL Super Fights pay-per-view offering, and one giant stood tall over the rest. Francis Ngannou, some 33 months removed from the MMA cage, 7 months removed from Anthony Joshua knocking out his lights, and unfortunately just a handful of months removed from the untimely death of his 15-month-old son. All of that came together for Francis in his return against Renan Ferreira, the PFL Heavyweight Super Fight Championship on the line, but that wasn't the story. It took less than a round, but good old Francis turned into Brock Lesnar against Frank Mir, delivering the first-round TKO, an emotional interview afterwards. Luke Thomas, first and foremost here, forget PFL for a second. This one's about Francis. What's your biggest takeaway from Saturday?
He had a triumphant moment, I think, in his return to MMA. And we really only talked about what it meant that he was coming off of the terrible, tragic loss to his, of his son.
Sure.
And then the terrible professional loss, not that they are equivalent, but the professional loss to Anthony Joshua. But BC, when you think about it, there was actually more than that. I mean, really, Francis was the face of this entire thing. Like, the only reason why it was the biggest card in PFL history is because Francis, who is still the lineal heavyweight champion of MMA, was on it. He did most of the promotion for it. He did and featured in most of the spotlight for it wherever you began to see it. So there were those two things before. Then there's the pressure of, like, to what extent is this going to be an event that people care about? That was on Francis. This was Francis's first MMA fight since getting knee surgery. I know we'd seen him in 2 boxing fights, but wrestling is a different kind of toll on your orthopedic joints. So there was that as well. And I can go and list other features all down the line, still dealing with UFC detractors, still dealing with negativity in the press.
Still kind of fighting Dana publicly in a sense, right?
In a sense, yes. And nevertheless went in there and turned in what I would call, like, wasn't enough of a performance against enough of a foe to be something spectacular. I can't say that. But it was a clear demonstration that despite some of these difficulties, hurdles, accumulated pressures around him, that he is still very much the man in charge.
Yes.
He is still very much capable of beating what I would call Renan Ferreira a limited but good fighter, still plenty capable of beating that, and then some. We'll get to his future. I'm sure you're going to ask about that, and we will talk about it. But to be able to have a moment to get over the Joshua loss, to, I don't know what the business returns are going to be, but in terms of what he could provide the broadcast and the event, I think he did just about everything he could do. You could make that argument. He performed as ably as he possibly could, and I think did so very, very well. There was a couple of details with that crab hook where he was going for the ground and pound. There were nice little details you could see in his game, especially the ground game.
So you would say 33 months he wasn't not working on any MMA?
No, it seemed like the people were asking, like, what was the value of this win? Because Ferreira is limited on the ground. There is no denying that. But I would say that the answer is, even if he's limited in those spots, and he is, had Francis lost to somebody like this, it would have told you that maybe the core of his game is beginning to degrade.
Yes.
It is not degrading. It is not. He is still going to beat very good fighters in the state that he's in, and potentially, depending on what matchups could arrive his way, some really good ones. I don't know. But I just want to point out, being able to exorcise the demons that had been following him, not that this one event does it all together, but I'm sure it will help in the healing process. Being able to finally talk more openly about your child.
Sure.
and in a way where he can be praised and acknowledged and adored and loved even from afar, to be able to have, again, a triumphant moment that he hadn't had a winning moment in quite some time. I think all this was good for Francis. I think in general it was quite good for PFL. And I don't know where we go next, but it was a fun little moment in the heavyweight division's history.
I mean, when we talked about the make or break elements of this card for PFL, even though we're rightfully focusing on Francis to start here, we were arguing, like, is this really a make or break? Is there anything that can happen here positively or negatively that can demonstrably change? I think the one thing that we said was, what if Francis comes in here, looks good, and do what we think he's capable of? And he did that. He came in there, didn't take any damage, felt him around a little bit on the feet, took him down, and took him apart. At least it keeps alive the idea, should PFL lean on that from a marketing sense, and they probably, as we said last week, should have played up more the idea that they have the lineal heavyweight champion, the best heavyweight in the world. This still keeps alive, if they want to play that card, the idea that we have the best heavyweight champion. Hey, UFC, you have the best fighter of all time who happens to be your heavyweight champion. Let's break all the rules and do a cross promotion. If Francis goes in there and loses or looks old or what have you, that conversation's off the table. At least that's still in place for whatever that's worth and wherever that can lead to. But going back to the personal story of Francis, I mean, this just proves how different he is, how special he is, that he can endure not just that incredible journey to get to France to even begin his combat sports career, not just endure the ridiculous soap opera with UFC while his knee's torn up and go in there and unify the championship against Ngannou over 5 rounds by wrestling, but can take this time off, go through these setbacks, and still prove when it's time he's a fucking gamer, that he's still the man.
I saw people on social media say, like, Francis, he always comes out on top. That's actually not true. He doesn't always come out on top. There are times, in fact, this bout, part of the reason why it was significant was because more recently, again, personally and privately, things have been going very poorly for him. But the reality is he doesn't win every time, but he doesn't ever let failure, setback, devastation even define his circumstances.
Yes.
That's what I would say.
He's still more inspiring of a character in these combat sports than ever before. I mean, it's just wild.
I don't think this pay-per-view card is going to sell well, and there might be some questions about what Francis's appeal is in a world where he didn't sell well. And again, he's coming off of a knockout loss. He's coming off of a horrific personal tragedy. Those are things that will hurt you and set you back and devastate your life. And yet, he is still able, when the time is right, to take control of things and then reassert himself in a dominant way. I think that's, to me, what I got out of Saturday, at least from the Francis Ngannou side.
For sure. Let me ask you a devil's advocate question, because some people thought I was too harsh on Ciryl Gane when John Jones did make his heavyweight debut.
No, you weren't harsh enough.
And sat, within 2 minutes, had him on the ground and was just putting him in peril, and the fight was over. And you're like, okay, great win for John, coming off of 3 years, moving up in weight. We're not taking that part of it away. We are taking apart some element of, not the value, but what we learned from it, because how minimal the pushback was from Gane. This fight was a little different than that, but not all too different. Renan Ferreira tried to, he had a couple calf kicks that were good. He tried a couple punches that came up short, and then he got taken down, and then the fight was over. Are there any elements of this that weren't fool's gold, but it went perfectly to plan to Francis? Did we see enough or learn enough about Renan Ferreira in this specific fight?
I think, again, Renan Ferreira is 34. He basically is who he is, but the big difference between him and Ciryl Gane is, Gane is big and powerful, like any big athletic heavyweight is going to be, but he's not the puncher that Renan Ferreira is. Not even close. No. Ferreira is a better puncher for 2 reasons. 1, he puts more into it, right? And 2, he will use it in ways that sometimes are suboptimal for other forms of defense, like wrestling defense. But what that does is, if you're not really minding your P's and Q's, he's going to set you on fire, like, for example, what he did against Ryan Bader, who tried to close the distance without properly setting it up, and he got eaten alive for it. Francis didn't do that.
21 seconds, that
right.
fight.
Francis didn't do that. He waited for the right hand to come all the way across and then got underneath. Obviously, John did something similar, but remember 2 things. 1, Francis had an opponent who stayed in his stance, so he fired his cross, but he didn't bring his other hip with him. Fucking Ciryl Gane switched stances motherfucking into John Jones. Like, all-time bad decision-making, and he's not the puncher that Renan Ferreira is. So I think that Gane, people are going to say, I'm saying that Ferreira's a better fighter than Gane. That is not what I'm saying. But I am pointing out meaningful differences between these two, between Gane and Jones, and now Francis and Ferreira. They're similar, but they're meaningfully different too.
Friend of the program, Brett Okamoto, on the In-Cage interviews on
I did see
Saturday.
that, yes.
Let's check in on Francis in this emotional aftermath of the victory.
Thank you, guys.
Luke, listen, separate from the fight element of it, we're both fathers. What he went through was hell. 15-month-old son, out of nowhere. To bite down and go back to your job and do what he did, really regardless of the result, but also to go in there and dominate and devastate like he did, that's a real man. Because when you really read Francis's quotes about the obvious nature of the emotional toll and impact, and now that he wants people to remember his son Kobe's name, and it's so remarkable and inspirational in a lot of ways. I don't know how he was able to get it back on track. You see those quotes where he said, it would take 1,000,000 years to grieve this, and that wouldn't even be enough. And I could fully understand that. We know the love between a parent and a child. How do you look at him as the dad at what he went out and did on Saturday?
I want to answer that, but can we see the other clip?
Sure.
There's a clip where Francis reflects on his toughness. Can we see that Long Island, Luke?
I used to, they've been telling me that I'm tough to the point that I get to believe that I'm tough. And then I recently just find out that I wasn't tough. I wasn't that tough, like life can let you take an advance and think you're running away, and then it hits you really bad, like from the front. And then, it's something that I never imagine. I never know how I feel. I have seen people going through it, and then I even, out of compassion, I even trying to understand like how he must feel, but never get anywhere close to how he feel exactly.
Obviously, this is something you've had to think about, deal with your entire training camp. How bad or hard was it today to focus on the fight itself?
It was pretty hard. He was hard at any moment from the beginning to the end, but I think it's one of those things that you kind of like ask yourself, is this gonna ever be over? And you think he might never be over. You just might as well learn how to roll with it, to live with it, because in certain case I would have taken time, to grieve. But how long would that take? I don't think there's enough time for me to do that. I don't think a lifetime would be enough to grieve. And so is it just about like keep going, It's a new life that I'm new with.
Holy shit.
So I want to make a point here. Like Khabib and Francis kind of both have this ability where neither is a native or really even a fluent English speaker.
Yeah.
And yet both of them in their own way have a command of the language that's beyond ours. And Francis, in his particular case, if there's a through line in his career, both from what he says on the personal side in dealing with this, but this was how the personal side was intersecting with the professional side and how he was going to resolve those differences. And his answer was just to keep going, basically. But the way in which he described it, as you just heard, it will take your breath away. He has such a rich and thoughtful inner life and inner monologue and inner, I'm not religious, but I don't know what the word would be, but some kind of inner spirituality, some kind of thing like that.
He shines brightly.
Some kind of sense of self, but the way in which he thinks it through and processes it and tries to understand it, he is extremely smart, extremely wise. And if you go and look at his professional decisions and now look at his personal decisions, it just seems to be like no one makes them flawlessly, but he makes them very considered and very adept as a consequence, even amidst
It's incredible.
Unfathomable loss.
He doesn't need to be that philosophical and perfect in the way he presents it, but we get it. He's so relatable yet unrelatable due to how miraculous his inner strength is, and the people that have the most wisdom when you meet them in life tend to be the people who have been through the most, and that's certainly been the life cycle of Francis's life. So to deliver this performance under those circumstances is certainly remarkable. To be able to express it, like you said, in the way he did. We don't really do power rankings of our favorite people in combat sports, But like, I don't really get, and I know a lot of people like in the Dana versus Francis debate and who really was right or wrong, people just, if you're a UFC loyalist, you're like, Dana was right. This guy didn't want to fight John, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's all like BS. When has this guy made a misstep? When has he done something where we're like, well, I don't agree with what he just said or what he just did? Like, he's a pretty remarkable human being. And you could say we don't see that too often in combat sports, which sometimes can bring in sort of the people on the edge of society looking for a purpose or a way out in some cases. In this case, like, I don't even think we give him enough superlatives to really say as a person what he represents. Like, it's as pure and babyface and remarkable as, I mean, how could you not? Every aspect of his life is like this instructional manual on how to push through and persevere and chase your goals. And despite the pain you're going through, I mean, it is incredible. And I don't mean to tie that into how PFL is going to market him or what that means for the future.
They don't know how to market him.
They don't. But like, we're naturally going to say, okay, who should he fight next? The biggest win for PFL may have actually been that he won, and now it's Francis is that attraction. I think performances like that speech afterwards, bringing his personal life to the center and showing us his pain, it only makes you want to see him more. I don't even care the level of competition. I just want to see that guy compete. I want to see him carry out his life story in front of me.
I agree. I wouldn't put him up for sainthood. I mean,
I'm not trying to go that far.
Amount of Saudi blood money. Let's just be honest about that. However, I don't really care that much about it.
He crawled through the Shawshank UFC tunnel to get
he's
that.
done more. I don't really care. I'm just saying no one's perfect. That's all.
You're like, hold on, BC. Is anyone in combat sports really that good for people? Us included?
Neither you nor I. Either. Neither you nor I. I don't.
Right.
None of us are really all that well suited. I do want to make a point. People are going to say, "Oh, PFL doesn't know how to promote him." Neither did UFC. I don't think they really ever did it all that great either. I mean, they did it certainly well at times, for sure.
But they didn't have him on Good Morning America retelling his story of coming over.
They promoted him as this undeniable juggernaut of force.
The Mike Tyson of MMA is what I used to call him.
Which, by the way, is a perfectly fine way to promote him at times. But I think that what all the promotions he's worked with have kind of never really understood is you've got a guy here who is made of something. We have been around the fight game for so long. I can count guys like this on my. I only need 2 fingers. Who's the giant who lost a bunch of fingers in the fireworks accident? What was his name?
Who are you referring to?
Thinking of the football player, Jason Pierre-Paul?
Yeah. JPP.
Oh, JPP. Yeah.
I could be like JPP and I could still identify all the
Instead,
people.
you act like Richie Incognito all the time. He's a great teammate over here, right?
What's his favorite letter of the alphabet? I think it's the N. I think it's the N. But anyway, I just want to point out, Francis is so full of depth. He's actually a little bit of a challenge for promotions who just need an easy hook to sell.
You're right.
He's got too much for them, and so they just kind of like, he's strong, he's big.
Battle of the Giants.
Battle of the Giants. And it's like, okay, that's not nothing, but that's not the real story.
I bet the Smart Cage came up with that. If we're going to have the conversation about what's next for John Jones, I'm saying, Francis, we can't not mention John Jones. Speaking of John, he tweeted about this. Let's check it out over here from Boney. What an amazing job Francis did tonight. Displayed a complete MMA game. Great kicks, great takedowns. It feels good to see him shine. Wow. Congratulations, champ. I see you.
Why does he spell Boney wrong?
Period. End quote. What do you think the Boney nickname references? Because I never really got why he names himself Boney.
Well, he's John Bones Jones.
No, is that it? Is it just instead of Bones, it's Boney?
I don't quite get why it's
Or
Boney.
is he a big like Boney acai fan? Or whatever.
Hey, maybe it's maybe they're just paying him for the
I mean, the one thing John
handle.
Didn't say in there is, "I'd love to fight you one day."
Right, that's what you say to a guy when you're wishing him bon voyage.
Yes, have Don call Dana and Hunter.
I was going to say that. I actually feel like what John said there was, to a degree,
genuine,
heartfelt.
Yeah.
Yes, I absolutely think that.
John Jones can be a real man in person, too.
Fair enough. However, I also feel like that was him being like, we're never fucking fighting.
Yes,
you know what I mean? Like, that was how I took that.
So when we talk about what's next, let's get over that hump first. Does the result of this change anything in the public pressure, court of public opinion, the business futures of TKO Global, or TKO Group? Are we more likely in the TKO Group era to see something in the past was impossible, a UFC crossover with another promotion? Does this event in a result change any of that, or should we put this to bed and figure out what free agent heavyweight out there is going to be next for Francis?
I don't think that there is going to be a free agent at heavyweight, although one never knows. I do want to point out something. Like, people are giving Saudi Arabia a lot of credit for making fights happen. And to be clear, they are entitled to a fair amount of credit. Whatever else one wants to say about them, who is putting up money to make many of these fights, both in MMA, but more so certainly on the boxing side possible? It is definitely the Saudis. We are going to get a test of their limit. We're gonna find out what their upper bound limit is, because they've got all the money in the world to make John Jones or even Tom Aspinall or whoever ends up having it. Again, whoever ends up that being versus Francis. You know Francis would be willing. You certainly know Turkey probably wants it. You certainly know he's got the resources to make it happen. What would be the only obstacle, Brian Campbell, that could potentially get in the way if you have PFL enthusiasm, ESPN Plus support, Turkey's unlimited money, as well as his interest? What would be the only potential factor holding that up?
I'll give you 2 initials for 2 words, and they are UF.
Yes.
Uncle Fester. Yes,
I
thank
see
you.
you. So if the UFC doesn't want to co-promote, even under these circumstances, there is literally nothing short of the force of law that could ever
Don't
make
go
them.
past that. If that ever did happen, because look, remember, Turkey was talking about getting Ariel and Dana together, the ultimate breaking of bread. If they could get Don Davis and Peter and Murray, or whatever the guy's name is, and Dana and all them, and Ari Emanuel at the table, and they were just like, look, we're going to put so much money in your company's pocket. This is going to be the biggest MMA event of all time. This is going to be Fedor versus Crow Cop, but in UFC form. Would it have to be a UFC pay-per-view airing on whatever UFC network it is at the time?
Dude.
And would PFL do that as long as he was able to come in with the PFL belt around him as PFL heavyweight champion?
I think PFL would give up literally everything, including that.
Just to get the money and exposure from it?
And including even the ability for Francis to win the heavyweight title. So what Pride used to do at times was they would have like Takanori Gomi as their lightweight champion, and he would fight for another person with the title. Then they just book him later in a fight, and he could win or lose it. And in fact, one time he did lose it, but they never made the fight a title contest. So he never lost the belt, even though he got fucking submitted by Marcus Aurelio. I guarantee you they would give up that and everything else just to make that possible on a UFC broadcast.
See, if UFC's ESPN deal wasn't coming up soon, I would think that maybe we should start talking about this, because if it was all under the same network anyway and it didn't matter, does the networks change it at all? Or you're saying it doesn't matter, it's going to be on UFC pay-per-view if it ever would happen?
Yes.
I know Dana would never want to, under all the reasons we know. Does Ari Emanuel and others at that level with TKO trump him? Could they talk him into that?
Again, we're going to get the limits of what Turkey's willing to do to make big fights happen.
Okay, interesting.
If he can't make it happen as basically the guy with an ATM card to a petrol state, I don't know that it's possible.
All right, if we're going to talk about possible Francis next opponents in the smart cage, we can have the same debate we did when he signed with them in 2023 and go, Junior Dos Santos, who, by the way, took the Game Bread contract over this possibility, Derek Lewis, who re-signed with UFC. So it's slim pickings. But what about this? What about the same thing that we're trying to back Dana into a corner to do? Can we do that with Shatri's guy, Anatoly Malikin, one of the best heavyweights in the world?
Yep.
Do you think that's something that could relatively easily happen, so that when we're going maybe Francis does come back next against a washed X name and mops the floor with him to keep the money going for PFL? But is that a fight that can be built to that you think would be worth it? Because I know Malikin's not a household name, but hardcore guys know that this guy's one of the biggest badasses in the world. Can you make that fight?
And Francis has beaten better guys, has faced better guys, has much better punching power, but Malikin's smaller, quicker, and can wrestle. That's an interesting fight.
Would you call Malikin gas station Fedor? But not as a
he's a little bit better than that.
But not as an insult, as a compliment?
Yeah, Brian Campbell gas station Fedor, maybe. You know what I mean?
So you could still eat there.
Yeah, it'd be like a Wawa where you can definitely still get like a lot of cool things. I think that fight can be made and should be made. And I realize it's delicate. How do you do it where everyone can benefit, even in the event that your guy loses? There are complications related to that, but I don't think it's all that complicated in terms of finding some kind of crossover deal that is mutually beneficial, especially as one moves to a more Muay Thai model out of Thailand. They've cut their costs. They've moved their financial headquarters. They're not in MMA as much as they used to be. Brian Campbell won't stop smirking.
Because I have an idea that I know you'll shoot down, but I love the idea.
Okay.
So imagine if 42-year-old Cain Velasquez gets sentenced for jail in this upcoming trial, and then he's just like, F it. Before I go in, one more time.
He already lost to Francis.
I know, but the knee fell apart and it wasn't a real fight.
Yeah.
Is he still
Do you
deep
think
under
he's
UFC?
more situated now?
I'm just trying to think
win?
what's the biggest name you could get that's not with the UFC right now. But is he? But actually, he still is tied to the UFC, probably contractually.
I would
right?
imagine he is, or I
Okay,
doubt.
so that fight is a non-starter too.
Yeah.
What's realistic then? What's the next option? Is it
I honestly feel-
Delia? What is it?
I think that if they can't get Malikan, and even if they can get Malikan, that's not going to sell well on pay-per-view, although that would be a very good fight.
Who's a somewhat recently retired, still in their early 40s, still would have a marketable shot?
I
at
think we
this?
need to just look at this reality and be like, the reason why Francis can't get fights is not because the PFL is not making it worth the while of a potential challenger. It's because the contracts are so long
Yes.
inside the UFC. And by the way, other promotions play these games too, but the reality is we're talking about the possible contenders he could face. They are all with the UFC, and those contracts are extended and so long that there's not enough of a rotation to get them out. And even when there is, they find ways to kind of cleverly undercut it. He has to fight Deontay Wilder. I don't know who else he could fight. I saw
He's
I
not
saw-
going to fight Deontay Wilder.
I saw.
Oh, you
people
mean in
say-
boxing?
In boxing. Oh, they
But the
could do
PFL
MMA.
won't get money in that unless they do a hybrid fight.
I don't know what option PFL has.
I'm going to give you two
Beggars
of them.
cannot be
I'm going to give you
choosers.
two of them and see if they're acceptable. Okay.
Okay.
One is the recently knocked out Ryan Bader. Let's say he gets a
Fuck
tune
no.
of. Okay.
Absolutely not.
Two is former Bellator light heavyweight champion who's now a heavyweight, Vadim Nemkov.
Vadim Nemkov is a decent name you could go to. Yes, that is somebody. That's not going to sell a dime on
no.
pay-per-view.
But
But
like-
is that a legitimate fight? Yes.
Yeah,
it's a
MMA
legitimate
fans
fight.
would not shit on that, right? They'd be like,
No.
okay, let's
Well,
see it.
yes, they would. They would say Nemkov is not quality, blah, blah, blah. But he is quality. He is quite good. That's a tough fight.
Are there
yes.
any other large light heavyweights that would fit this bill?
If I was Johnny Walker, why are you fighting in the UFC? Like like if you're gonna fight in the UFC and you want to be a champion, you need to be like considerably better than your peers, right? And he's not that, but he is, dude. He's got the donk. You know, he's just gyrating his crotch at all times, kind of bit going on. He could make a splash at outside the UFC, I think, much better than he could inside. It's time for him to realize what his true
Okay.
future is.
This is also
Getting viciously cake.
also a non-starter due to contracts. But do you think Poatan would have the balls to step in there at heavyweight against him?
I think Poatan would have the balls to step in there against Thanos if you gave him an opportunity.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
and this is what I mean. Like Francis, if he had enough contenders, could be doing some really, really interesting things in MMA. But the reality with the PFL is they have tried to feather a nest for a potential contender. Remember, not just $1, but $2 million to anyone who faces Francis. But they can't get out of their contracts. So there you go.
If he hadn't tragically passed, would Rumble Johnson be in this mix?
He would be in this mix. Yes,
Interesting.
he would be.
Let's go to topic number 2, Luke, and it's about the PFL event as a whole, which was not just Francis. This main card, at least on paper, was strong. I don't know if it was, better than the Sphere like PFL Brass was trying to tell us, but this co-main was fantastic. We'll get to the individual pieces. I want to ask you as a whole, though, having watched the entire broadcast in full, Luke Thomas, give me a grade for PFL staging not their first pay-per-view, but their first sort of super fight, what they're trying to do to stand out and really compete with the UFC. How do you grade the event?
So I talked to Long Island Luke about this.
Oh, yeah, our betting
and
analyst.
He had a higher grade than me. I think you could average them out and get somewhere probably close to the right grade. I've had my initial. I kind of gone back and forth between 5 and 6. I think 6 is a little bit better. I could even squint and give it a 7, but that's a little high. Let's talk about what went right. Co-main event, fantastic. Let's talk about main event. Wasn't super spectacular, but we just said it was a triumphant moment for a really important figure in MMA.
Wasn't boring either.
Wasn't boring. Fine. So those things were great. Paul Hughes versus AJ McKee, fantastic. The Johnny Eblen fight was terrible, and then there were just two donks. What the fuck are they doing on this card?
Ray Lewis was there.
Stabbing him up. Just stabbing him
Was
up.
Turkey not there? Did they need a
I
killer?
did not see Turkey. Cristiano Ronaldo was there. I'm not saying Turkey wasn't there. I just didn't see him. And usually Turkey likes to be seen, so I didn't see him.
That's just such a wild card. Ray Lewis showing up.
Right,
Right?
Ray Lewis and Cristiano Ronaldo. It's like, what? Okay. So that was interesting. There was nobody in attendance. They might as well have been fighting in the fucking Apex in terms
There was
of
more
who
people
was
in
there.
that Washington, D.C. that theater that they played at that time, it seemed like.
There was
than-
literally, I think, more people at the Anthem is what you're talking
Yes,
about
the
than
Anthem,
it was
yes.
in the wherever the arena was in Riyadh. It was, I could not believe how lifeless it was. The pacing was good. The pacing was very, very good. I think because a lot of the fights went to decision, but nevertheless, that was great. So there was some positives. Commentary team, I like a lot. In particular, Dan Hardy.
Dan Hardy was an MVP
Dan
of the
Hardy
show,
is
yeah.
excellent on those broadcasts. I think Randy's starting to go a little bit.
I hate to say that. I mean,
He's
speaking
starting
of
to get old.
He should have came on our show that time. We never would have told the truth. But look, Randy's one of my favorite
starting to get old.
favorite color commentators in MMA history. But yes, it seems to be he's on the other side of the mountain, but it's still
So I think
capable.
this. I think this. Did they provide a reasonably compelling broadcast of televised MMA in a way that they were able to both entertain and then flex their muscles as the PFL? Somewhat is the answer. Somewhat. There were positives that I've identified, but it did not feel to me like the PFL took flight. The one time, for example, where I felt like a brand took flight off of a card and their promotion of it and it all kind of working was the first time, for example, AJ McKee fought Pitbull for Bellator. And I remember tweeting that night, if you want to know what a big night at Strikeforce felt like, it felt like that.
You remember
where-
what city that was in?
I forget what city he was in, but remember AJ McKee had all of his fights in Bellator.
Yes.
He was rising through the ranks. He had finally made it to the final boss, and then he wins in spectacular fashion. They promoted it the right way. This guy was set up the right way.
We were saying AJ McKee should fight on free CBS after that fight.
Yes.
Like that's how big that win
That's
felt
how
at
big
the
that
moment.
was. That was a really well done job by everyone at Bellator to really make that work.
It was
This-
in Inglewood, Connecticut, that first fight.
Inglewood, California.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, Connecticut. My bad.
Bong hits Nocito over here.
let's
you
go
know.
to San Diego, Rhode Island. You fucking moron. All right.
Ow. All right, that was a little harsh. He does keep
Sorry.
it. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just joking.
You ever notice how like they allow his face on Friday's show, but not Mondays?
Yeah, they're like, get that fucking go brush your teeth. All right. The point I'm trying to make here was,
He's not British. He's Australian.
dude, part of being mean to other guys is that it doesn't make any sense. You're just being mean. Holy shit, can I do that? All right. Lastly, I felt like it was a decent showcase of what they had to offer, as well as a showcase of what lacks in their product. And BC, we've talked about it, how they're just really a financial asset.
Yes.
With the no crowd thing there, I don't know what to do because he who pays the piper calls the tune. If the Saudis are footing the bill, this is just going to be what it's going to be. But there is no soul to the product.
Agreed.
There,
yes.
there is no core identity
Yes.
to the product. And I don't think that for all the good that came out of this card, and there was some good, plenty of good actually, that never came across.
I sometimes it's just the crowd energy, right? Like for example, that PBC show we did in Orlando. I mean, that room probably had 2,000 people in it, but they were fired the hell up and going nuts during those good action fights.
Those
where
those were real boxing fans.
So
were
at
there.
so you were like, oh my God, I wonder what this looks like on TV. Like this feels big in this moment. They have never had that, and that's probably the biggest problem is they don't care about ticket sales. We talk about it ad nauseum at all. It seems to be only about the broadcasting deals to really fuel them. But I really wish to use that axiom again. Is that the right word for that? They always build horizontally. Build up. But stack your assets on top of each other. Let's start it. And some of that is building a fan base, building somebody that can show up and bring excitement. You know, I wish they had that environment
How
there.
can you push a product if you don't know what its identity is?
Yes.
They keep talking like we're the duopoly in MMA. If the goal of the event was to say that, hey, if you're a UFC fan, you can watch this and you can get an equivalent experience to watching the UFC, did they succeed on that level? No, of course they did not. That doesn't mean they didn't have nice graphics packages.
Yes.
Doesn't mean that the broadcast didn't move nimbly. It did. Or that you didn't have some premier quality talent on there. You did. First fight and last fight, plus co-main, you had some real quality, like legitimately great fights on there. But it's hard to walk away from that knowing what the PFL is. What is this?
What they should be is let's identify our 4 or 5 biggest names that are a combination of marketing people like Francis and Jake, people on the rise like Paul Hughes, who we're going to talk about, you know, the Patchy Mixes, the guys that you can actually make the claim that they're in the top 5 in their division on a global level and do a somewhat regular pay-per-view. I mean, isn't that the model of how you try to compete with the UFC? You front load all of your biggest assets, even if some of the assets are smoke and mirror. I mean, that was arguably what Bellator was doing during the circus fight era when they were doing huge cable numbers on Paramount with Ken Shamrock at age 50 and Dada
fucking Kimbo
5000.
Slice.
But they were getting enough commercial benefit from that you were saying, look, they're not the UFC, but they are a competitor of some degree because a certain nights per year, they're going to put something out there that if they did go head to head, they might win that battle. So
with Kimbo Slice, they reached, not just him, but he was a big feature of it. They reached enough into the mainstream where they were pulling audiences as big or bigger than
5 or 6
UFC,
million.
Yes, bigger than UFC broadcasts in a way that you just cannot imagine what it would be like for an MMA promotion today to have the equivalent kind of mainstream reach.
Now, that was before the streaming launch, so those numbers don't apply to today, but still, 5 and 6 million they were peaking in viewers. I really wish the PFL, as we talked about, would kick away the season format. Don't take Paul Hughes and go put him on the Bellator international scene now, where maybe you do a good house in Dublin, but it's like, put your assets together. How do you succeed in MMA? It looks like they're going to need the pay-per-view model. So let's put 4 or 5 pay-per-views out there on the schedule, and let's load them up with your best fighters competing, not for multiple titles, meaning we're going to have a regular PFL season title and an intergalactic super fight title, and then there's that Bellator title. If you have more than one in the same promotion, they're meaningless. We learned this in boxing. Put it all together, because if I see Paul Hughes have a breakthrough win, what I want to ask next is, who's the lightweight champion and how quickly can we make that fight happen? That's the one thing one championship does well, to stay afloat and to put out the type of cards, for the most part, that we will shoehorn into our rundown and talk about, because they tend to put this champion against this champion and bring them together. They tend to basically take the menu items available and put them all together and say, look, we want you to give us a chance. Let's do it. That's what PFL has to start doing. And there were some good moments and good stories that we have to talk about. That co-main event, Chris Cyborg at 39?
Yes.
We just all sort of said, look, it's going to catch up to her eventually. Pacheco has an iron chin and big power. This will be the time where she hands the torch off to the next, Brazilian slugger. Luke, she's not done yet. Her 5th major organization. She wins a major title, taking a hard-earned unanimous decision from this new destroyer on the block. How impressive, Luke, was Chris Cyborg in this regard, to go in there against a younger, at the peak of her prime destroyer, and still show you whether it's the veteran tricks of grappling in key spots, or it's still just that explosive power and overcoming vicious cuts on both eyelids. Dude, she's not done yet or close to it.
I have to tell you, based on this performance, and then thinking about it a little bit more, here's what I'm going to say. And this is something I could not imagine saying even a year ago. Chris Cyborg has a case as the best women's fighter of all time. Has a real, legitimate
So not
case.
even in I'm Scott Coker and I'm trying to sell in my Bellator broadcast that she is already. You're saying it might actually be true now.
We all know the story where Chris and Amanda faced off, and Amanda beat her relatively easily, basically. They exchanged punches, and she was the more dominant puncher, and she put it away. That is such a... it's not like two people who never fought, and you have to kind of compare resumes. They fought, and Amanda easily basically got the better of her, and that's really going to hurt Cyborg's argument. But allow me to make a different argument, if I may, which is, I think this is indisputably true. Chris Cyborg has the most important and impressive MMA championship longevity in all of MMA history. Ready for this? 2009, she becomes the Strikeforce champion. 2013, she becomes the Invicta champion. 2017, she becomes the UFC champion. 2020, she becomes the Bellator champion. And here it is in 2024, she becomes the PFL champion. She literally has been fighting on television since women were only allowed to fight in 3-minute rounds. What she has put together in going from all these different promotions, which you can see on the screen, cannot even be done anymore because the business model of MMA has changed such that this kind of availability doesn't even exist anymore. And there's one more point I would like to add to this.
Please do.
Yes, it is true. Amanda got the better of her. And again, I think that's going to make obviously a strong case for Amanda as well. But when Amanda lost in September of 2011, when she was in Strikeforce, Cyborg was already champion, had been champion for 2 years. When Amanda Nunes lost in Invicta in 2013. Later that year, Cyborg became the champion, beating, by the way, and not just beating, thrashing Marloes Kunin, who was a very, very good fighter at that time. But Cyborg was a champion while Amanda was losing. Then Amanda goes and fights Kat Zingano in 2014. I think this is Pete Kat Zingano, and she loses there. What point am I making? Yes, at their absolute peak, Amanda reached a higher threshold. But the consistent championship level of excellence for 15 years, when other fighters were losing in the same promotions while they were in the promotions at the exact same time, Cyborg was champion at all these places and all these times. To do it at 39, at 45, 145 against Pacheco, who just came off the Kayla Harrison win.
Yeah.
And I want to say this last thing, too. Everyone's like, what about the drugs? What about the drugs? Guys, she was on USADA and PFL and UFC. So right now, she's supposed to be under USADA guidelines. You're the ones who've told me for years how important that is. And she didn't do it with brute power against Pacheco. She did it with what you mentioned. Skills.
Yes.
Veteran savvy.
Timing.
Disrupting rhythm, setting patterns, disrupting patterns. The kind of thing where you couldn't do it with pure brawn. She used to be the kind of person where it'd be like, set your clock. Let's see how long it takes for Godzilla to eat.
Oh, she's made so many great adjustments.
She's so far beyond that. So for these reasons, BC, I wonder what you make of my case. I'm not declaring to you it's ironclad. What I am saying is no one has this level of championship excellence through eras of the sport for as long and as mightily as Chris Cyborg has.
I would say even before this fight, I would say you're right on that argument and say that the longevity is starting to add up at such an extreme level that I never thought Coker was like completely wrong in making that case. I know he did it for marketing purposes and because he, helped Cyborg make women's MMA a thing back in Strikeforce. But I do think you can make the argument leaning heavily on the pioneer side and this ridiculous consistency and longevity, which only got amplified by this win. But the biggest hole in your argument is also what a lot of people to believe is the strongest characteristic in a debate of what is the greatest of all time. And it's quality of competition and who did you beat. Now, I know what makes Cyborg's run so super special on top of everything we just said was she's going through different eras of women's MMA and adapting with it and getting better. So that's a great stamp on her. But the people that say it's laughable that you would put her above, or that anyone would put her above Amanda when not only did they go head to head and Amanda won, although I think Cyborg did deserve a rematch and got a raw deal the way her UFC run ended there. Luke, the biggest pushback will be people will say, okay, but what is Cyborg's best win? Holly Holm? Okay. But what's her second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth best win when you compare that to Amanda, who not only beat,
I can answer that.
But let me tell you, but not only beat, but brutally finished literally the who's who in women's MMA history. Now, didn't finish them all, but when you go through and you've got wins over Miesha Tate, Ronda Rousey, Valentina Shevchenko twice, on, and Holly Holm, on, and a lot of those were just absolutely dominant, and you knocked out a still, relatively close to peak prime Cyborg by knockout. It's going to just kind of shut that debate no matter how much we romanticize what Cyborg did. I'm a Cyborg super fan. I've become it over time because I have so much respect for how she carries herself and what she's doing out there. But I don't think she can climb that mountain above Amanda for everything I just said.
Yeah, but she also doesn't have losses to people like, and she's a good fighter, but not a great one, Alexis Davis. Cyborg doesn't have losses to people.
Okay, but how
like,
do you defend the actual
She
point?
doesn't have losses to people like Sarah D'Alelio. The point I want to make is I cannot argue that Amanda has a better core run, that run she went on, and has a higher peak. That's not really up for debate. I don't see how you could debate that. But what I can say is, you're talking about the level of competition Cyborg has faced. Again, there are some issues with that. Beating Marloes Kunin twice, beating Holly Holm in 2017.
Julia Budd twice, I think, too.
Julia Budd twice, and then now Larissa Pacheco. Dude, those are fucking super solid.
Add
wins.
Arlene Blenko twice to that.
Anger Fist.
That's
old Anger Fist.
One of my favorite fighters. Come on.
I'm being serious, though. Like, there's legit wins up and down that. I do think the Amanda's got a better run and a better peak. But when I say run, I mean like a core group of wins all put together. But I cannot stress it. When Amanda was getting polished off in Strikeforce, Cyborg was a champion.
But then somebody will just say, well, that's early. That's very early Amanda who was raw.
She has maintained that excellence.
But the point that I countered you is saying for all of that, it's still not enough to best the head-to-head where I think Amanda not only has an edge, like a dominant edge on head-to-head and quality of competition.
I would say she has an edge. I don't know if it's a dominant edge, but I do agree
like
she has
you
an
can
edge.
go through the history of Cyborg, notwithstanding the longevity and the respect and everything we have for her, but the quality of opposition at that time across the board.
Yeah, I mean, the run you could say that is the really great run would be Sarah McMahon, who's limited but good, Shevchenko, who maybe that's not her ideal weight class, but certainly very good, then Tate, then Rousey, that's the big one. Back to Shevchenko, that was heavily disputed. That was the split decision one. I thought Shevchenko won that fight.
So did I, but she got her hand raised.
But she got her hand raised. Raquel Pennington, that's a fine win, Cyborg is the big one. That's
GDR as well. You add in. I mean, there's some good wins.
GDR and Holm a little bit later, 2019. She beat her 2 years after Cyborg beat her, and then he gets to the Felicia Spencers and stuff like that. But the point I want to make is, yes, that run there, that core run, it's a better run than what Cyborg has. What you have to ask yourself is, what is more important, or rather, what is more impressive? A consistent level of slightly less but overall greater excellence, or a bigger peak and a faster run to the top?
It's like comparing BBLs to Ukrainian women. The
BBLs are going to win.
It's dead
literally
even,
every
Luke. It's
single
dead
time.
even. I'm sorry.
You're like, what about voluptuous women versus a bunch of lunch ladies? Yeah, who the fuck wins that battle? I don't know. BC's like, I wonder who wins in the rivalry between gazelles and fucking lions. Yeah, the lions
Luke,
do.
just because you believe it doesn't mean it's right.
BC, you have the most questionable taste I've ever seen in the opposite sex. To the point where I'm not even sure if that's what you're actually into.
Okay, that's rude. I draw the line there. That one went too far.
Anyway,
Luke,
hold on, just to wrap up.
Oh, you're okay. Go ahead. Wrap it up, Luke.
I cannot declare to you that the case for Cyborg is as good or better than Amanda.
I can. It's
For
not
Cyborg.
it's not as good, but it's hella impressive.
Okay. At a bare minimum, it is worth considering how unique the championship longevity is of someone like Cyborg. And again, the last point was to reiterate, going through those organizations, you can't even do that anymore in MMA because we just don't have the diversity of those organizations that matter in that way.
She's from another time and another era, only she's still really awesome. And by the way,
that win over Pacheco was fucking impressive.
To overcome both cuts on top of that and not let it bother her at all. But how about every time Pacheco landed a big strike, which happened at times, Cyborg would come right back with big combinations. Almost like every time Pacheco had an edge of momentum or confidence, it was like Cyborg filled that gap instantly. That's what champions
she won,
do.
What, 49, 46 on all three? I could have lived with 3-2.
Yeah.
I could have lived with 3-2, but there's no way you could find 3 rounds.
Such a great performance. One of her best wins of all time, considering all those circumstances.
I fully agree with that. That is literally one of her best wins.
Well, let's go to my favorite fight on the card, and it was on paper, and it played out so thrilling and not thrilling in terms of the actual action, but in terms of what we were learning. Paul Hughes, the 12-1 Irish prospect coming in against AJ McKee, I know AJ's now 29. It's not like he's a kid walking out that door, but I don't think we've still even seen the best of AJ McKee yet. They match him up together. We don't know what it's going to look like. How about Paul Hughes by split decision? He rocked McKee at the end of the first round. Although they both had moments on the ground, he had the better control of grappling. He showed veteran skills in how to win a close fight. Luke, first of all, how did you score that? Were you more than fine with a 3-2 Paul Hughes win?
29-28 Paul Hughes. He clearly won round.
Or not 3-2. Sorry, 3-round fight.
Yeah. 2-1.
Yep.
I thought he won the first round. I thought he lost the second round, or you could certainly make a case that he lost the second round, and I thought he did more than enough to win the third. He is so impressive. By the way, Paul Hughes, Ilia Topuria, MK, Hammer of the Month.
Oh, wow.
Hammers of the Month, both of those
Aaron
guys.
Blanchfield, right?
And Aaron Blanchfield.
Yes.
All three of them were Hammers of the Month here on this particular show.
That was one of our best things ever, and then Moneyline's like, yo, we out.
We did hate it in real time. Behind the scenes.
But we were told we had to do it, and then 3 months in, they're like, we out.
We out. But the point I want to make was we knew back then you could see it on tape that those guys were special. In the case of Paul Hughes, him too. Dude, the composure he showed, the boxing ability, sticking with what weapons were working, overall good wrestling ability, good decision making throughout a fight, when to push, when to break. Dude, he's so good.
Moxie, first of all, Moxie.
He's so freaking good. And I did think that AJ McKee looked a little unusually tired.
Once he got dropped at the end of round 1 with that big hook, I think he was downhill even though I thought he won round 2, I thought his overall like animal was like something, obviously he got knocked down, he got rocked. Like something happened in that exchange where he was never fully the same. And I think Hughes' confidence only continued to rise from there.
He was one of the top prospects in all of MMA. He chose PFL over UFC, I think largely because of what they're probably going to do in Europe. And then on top of it, the paycheck. And I don't know what he's going to be in all of MMA. I don't know what kind of opportunities he's going to get, but that guy is super fucking legit. And we've known it for a long time. And I hope now, by the way, I had so many people tell me, oh, that's too much for him against McKee. And McKee obviously is not somebody you can sleep on, nor should we have ever done that. But I'm like, I think Paul Hughes is pretty good. Look at him now.
Well, Paul Hughes has this idea because think of how ballsy this kid is. We didn't even know if he was going to get completely shunned by AJ and schooled and shown that he's not ready for this level. What does he go in? He wins a close fight and looks like the better fighter. Then he calls out Bellator lightweight champion Usman Nurmagomedov, who's arguably from a pound-for-pound level the best fighter in PFL altogether. Only he wants to up the attention level this will get. How? He knows Khabib will be in Usman's corner. He wants Conor. Do we have some media to attach to this?
Yeah.
So Conor McGregor must have heard this. I can't read. Can I read that, Luke? Can you read that?
Paul, my man, I will go to the arena and support 100% for sure. And if it kicks off, I'll be there before you could even say the Nurmagomedovs are juice head. I'm not even going to read this. Like he calls them
inbred rats.
Married to their cousin. I mean, he's just saying horrible things. Your team and corner have done a tremendous job with you. They will take you all the way. You've got this. We are with you, brother. Bring home the gold.
Okay, so he wants Conor in his corner. I mean, I'm shocked for all the issues with Conor being active that we still haven't seen Islam versus Conor for the welterweight title yet. Why? Because it's the closest UFC can come to milk that rivalry. Conor, the McGregors versus the Nurmagomedovs. Would this get like not the rest of the world, but the extended combat sports community? Would this wake them up if you had this quasi Conor versus Khabib fight? And oh, by the way, the fight rules. Paul Hughes against Usman Nurmagomedov.
I think it'd be huge. I don't know how likely or even possible
that's a stadium fight in Europe, right?
That is a huge. I mean, they'd probably put it in Saudi Arabia because PFL doesn't know what they're doing, but nevertheless, it's a huge monster opportunity. If they could make it happen, I don't know if they could, but I could not miss if you tried to.
But isn't that what they're probably going to do, PFL? Or do you think? Or actually, let me ask you this: do you think this is my biggest problem with PFL? They're giving out these fake pay-per-view belts. In their mind, we have 4 streams of income, 4 different leagues. We got pay-per-view, regular season / tournament, Bellator, and around the world, and then also our regional things. Do you think Paul Hughes becomes a full-time pay-per-view fighter after this? Or is he just going to go back to like Bellator London next or something?
I think he goes back to Bellator London, yeah.
This is where I wish they'd combine their assets, because what would I want to see on the next pay-per-view? And maybe they still can.
Yes.
Paul Hughes against Usman Nurmagomedov. Only I don't want to see it for the Bellator championship. I want to see it for the PFL championship, not the PFL Superfight championship. I want you to have one title. Stop being boxing, PFL. Combine it all. Have one title so that we can argue after the winner of that fight, is this guy better than the top 7 in the UFC? I mean, like, those are the arguments you want MMA fans to have.
We didn't even mention this. PFL never mentioned that if you actually go back to the Francis fight, that fight with Renan Ferreira was a unification of Pride, UFC, Strikeforce, Bellator, and PFL all on one night.
Wow.
That's never happened before.
Wow.
It was all unified under one night. Francis did it.
If Johnny Eblen enters a rematch unnecessarily against another Bellator guy and defeats him by wrestling and nobody watches it or talks about it, did it really happen?
Yeah, this was not a great part of the pay-per-view. Johnny Eblen performed ably against Fabian Edwards, who also had some moments, interestingly, throughout the course of this fight.
It doesn't need to be a 5-round title fight unless it's for the PFL middleweight championship, which is not a thing.
We didn't need to see it. It did not deliver. I think both guys are good, but I don't think that either comes away from this as like Fabian probably won't get a title shot again, but he didn't perform poorly.
Yeah.
And Eblen remains the champion, but did not perform impressively. And it's like, I don't know what you got out of that.
Do you have Eblen stores in your area? Those are like where you can find, like, it smells and they're really bad. And you can find, though, like weird clothes that were like, almost like a TJ Maxx Marshall's quality in that regard, but it's like a hipper, edgier place, and they have that really
like
weird.
Joseph A. Bank where I can take
no.
dump?
But they have that theme song. Ebb and Lens are at it again, saving you money at Eblen's. You really don't know this thing?
God, you're white trash.
All right. Hey, speaking of Conor, loosely connected to this, he's sick of wrestling, and so am I in MMA, Luke. No, I still like the wrestling aspect.
Okay, act like yous aren't fed up and over this bullshit all yous want, but I won't. It's just becoming the norm nowadays. The product is suffering because of it. If it wasn't for the brand name already well established, it would be well in the bin by now. It is in the bin in the mainstream. That's a fact. There is no mainstream casual audience here. It needs calling out, adjusting, a full review. MMA is better than what it has become recently, in my opinion.
Is this a stance against Dagestan fighters, or is it a stance against wrestlers, or both at the same time? Is he talking about the Eblen fight in particular? Right?
This came out during the Eblen fight, where Eblen was able to get like a body lock. He'd mat return Edwards to the canvas, and then he'd kind of be on a control position and kind of ride out the fight for a minute or two or more, and it just wasn't a whole lot to it. I actually really do agree with this argument. I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, Conor's making that because he's got BKFC and he doesn't like wrestling to begin with." Blah blah blah. But I'm not sure if I don't know if the Eblen fight is exactly the most egregious example. But I've been saying this, BC. I'm beating a dead horse at this point.
Are you want a UFC Muay Thai league? Basically, that's what you want.
No, I want people to weaponize wrestling you're not always going to get it like this, but to weaponize wrestling more akin to what Anthony Hernandez was able to do to Michel Pereira, which we'll talk about in just a moment.
Yeah.
So I'm just pointing out the real culprit is not wrestling per se. The real culprit is how we regulate wrestling inside of MMA vis-a-vis the referees. We don't make them act more.
Yes. I think
that would solve a huge amount of the complaints that we have about some guy just having a control position and then throwing knees to the thigh of the guy he's controlling.
I just don't want to see wrestling continue to be villainized. The key part of the makeup of this sport, of the combination of it was always the foundation to get ahead and win. People from that side of the world are innovating it and using it dominantly. You're right; it falls on the referees to enforce these things better. But let's not take away the idea that if two guys get together and fight, one can completely dominate the other and hold him down, and he can't move. There's something to that, Luke. Even if there's not a finish in the end,
there is something to that. It's called some skill, some dominance, and some stalling, and we should call it that.
I don't know, but.
Where are you on stalling in the sport, Long Island Luke?
I mean, I'm not a fan of stalling, but I'm with BC that I think there's an admiration for people who can wrestle that well, and you gotta it's a mixed martial art, man. It's one of the things.
Can they wrestle that well, or can they stall that well?
Well, what's your opinion of like Merab Sean, Luke? Do you think there was a lot of stalling in that?
There was a significant amount of stalling in that fight. Yeah,
I might be biased. I was rooting for Merab, but
whoever he bet for, that's where
he's like. I bet my Dodge Omni on that fucking thing, and if I had lost that, holy shit! Yes,
Wow.
they're stalling. If you have a control position and you're doing busy work with punches or strikes, where you're not really able to like let go and really look at what Francis did. Francis had a half crab ride with a crab hook, so he's flaring out the leg of Renan Ferreira, and he is fucking bombing on
He was in
him.
full missionary.
He was in full doggy, wasn't he?
No. Oh, at the end. Yeah,
At
at
the
the
end,
end. But how when he was crabbing on him and then he was setting
He's
up.
fucking
Yeah.
dominating him with
Yeah.
heavy punches. No one was worried about the fucking wrestling there. No one's worried about the control position.
I heard that you were very worried about rabbit punches in that sequence.
So at first, when I first came in, I'm watching it in real time.
True.
There were two punches that were very clearly on the back of the head. But then as I watched it, the replay, the result I came to was one, this motherfucker was going to lose anyway. Like, Renan Ferreira wasn't coming back before that.
Doesn't
right?
justify getting punched in the brainstem.
It doesn't. However, I think only one was gratuitous.
Hey, it didn't look too bad.
There was one where, if you notice, there's 7 punches where they're all clean, and then one halfway lands, and then you see Renan turn his head as the punch is coming.
Yes.
That's not Francis's fault. So, yes, were 2 of the punches not clean? Ultimately, I do think so, but I really don't think that this is in any way a disputable result.
I'm with you on that. I also am not done marveling, by the way, that Paul Hughes just went in there against AJ McKee and answered all the questions and figured out all the problem areas and won the fight cleanly.
Good
Close
boxing.
fight, competitive fight,
Dude,
but won the fight cleanly.
Strong pressure, good boxing in the pocket.
Dude, how about those knees out of
Yes.
nowhere?
Yes, but good defense, good scrambling.
Not a great promo afterwards, but he did show that he's a wild man. He's ready to
Dude,
fight
that's
everybody.
a tough fucking fight he just won.
Yes,
A
and then he
really
called out
tough fight.
Usman. Like he's going in, he wants to go through that.
Hammer of the month. Hammer of the month.
All right, let's go to topic number 3. They were back.
Apparently, Arnold Palmer is hammer of the month for Donald Trump. I'm just saying.
You ever see that guy's? You
ever see him in the shower? Look at that schlong.
It's weird. Let's go over to topic 3. We were back at the Apex for better or worse, usually for the latter. Fight night, main event, middleweight, trying to form a title picture here. Anthony Fluffy Hernandez answered all of our questions coming in, getting a 5th round TKO over Michel Pereira after largely dominating him outside for that early rush from Pereira, which was fun to see, but I didn't see much of it after that. So, Luke, where do you believe this puts old Fluffy in the power rankings here, in the top 10? How close is he to getting a shot at gold after this step forward performance against a guy who had an 8-fight winning streak coming in?
So he's not close enough to get to gold where we can be like, title shot next.
Yes.
But what we can say is, I think somewhere, again, give or take, somewhere in the 7 mark, inside the top 10, to me is about maybe a little bit less than that, maybe close to 8 or so, something like that. Maybe the back half of the top 10. This was an extremely impressive performance. I will say, if you look at the 2 losses he's had in the UFC, to Marcus Perez as well as Kevin Holland. It was weakness to the body that ultimately caused him problems. And sure enough, in the first round, Pereira hits him with a teep up the middle to the gut, and it hurts him. That does appear to be a noticeable Achilles heel that he has, which I wonder to what extent will limit his upside.
Interesting.
That aside, I got the stat here. You heard him mention it on the broadcast, BC, and I want to go to it here very quickly if I can.
Please.
The previous middleweight record in terms of significant strike differential in the UFC in history was when Rich Franklin beat David Loiseau. It was a 100.
You love that fight.
Well, here's why that fight's important. That was the first time in MMA, in my MMA watching experience, where I saw a guy get beat down round after round after round, and he came out of that. David the Crow Loiseau, which, by the way, he had an amazing. Go look at Loiseau's finish of Chainsaw Charles McCarthy.
Wow. How about that name? We haven't heard that in a while.
Yeah, a spinning back kick to the fucking liver that just folds him like a lawn
Good old
chair.
Chainsaw Charlie over there.
Chainsaw Charles McCarthy was a good fighter.
I
and he was
remember
a very
him,
good
but
coach. But the point I wanted to make was that the number there, the significant strike differential at middleweight in that fight, 106. 106 was the differential, and that fight changed David Loiseau. He was never the same afterwards. The differential on Saturday between Fluffy Hernandez and Michel Pereira, 128.
Wow.
128. Now, I'm not declaring to you that the kind of punches that Hernandez was putting on his opponent were the same as the kind of beating that Franklin gave Loiseau.
Yeah.
But it does give you a sense of just how fucking dominant and one-sided this was, historically so, to the point where it now becomes the statistical leader in significant strike differentials between two opponents at middleweight.
That's a statement that he made there. So Pereira had success early with the striking. Hit him with a good right hand, put a flurry on him, and you were like, oh crap, are we going to see a backflip soon? Why was Pereira, in your eyes, unable to adapt, adjust, or have really too many moments after that?
The easy answer is cardio. He simply doesn't have the capacity to labor through in the way that Hernandez does. That's a big part of it. And he does have some skills. But I actually think that Hernandez has a lot of really important skills with not just how much volume he can throw you, how much, by the way, it doesn't even seem to bother him to fail on takedown attempts, BC, because he's just going to go for another one and another one and another one and another one. And all that time, he knows you're working. And if you're working, you're not punching. And if you're not punching, you're not winning. He just doesn't mind doing this. Plus, he has a whole series of rides. In this particular fight, he went to leg drag a number of times and was making him work from like these basically leg drag twists your spine one way and your shoulders the other. So it immobilizes you. It makes it hard to work. And if, by the way, just to force it out, they come over to side control. This is what I mean. He's got an entire skill set based on making you dig yourself out of quicksand, and it never actually works. The more you dig, the more you simply go to the bottom on this, while he can just kind of float all around the top.
I mean, the real question is, can he scale that up? Can he have that same level of control against the more elite names in the division? And if he can't, do you believe he has the striking to be able to not just get into a spot against the number 3 guy where a win could put him on the verge of a title, but win those fights?
So here's what's interesting. I don't know if he's got the same kind of equivalent cardio for his division as someone like Merab. It seems like he might, although Merab is pretty special. But what he does have is he's a more dangerous finisher. You saw in this one, the damage he was doing caused the fight to be stopped ultimately in the 5th.
Yeah.
But he's also got great guillotines as well and doesn't mind jumping for them because he's such a devastating finisher. So what I'm pointing out is, even if you wanted to argue he doesn't have quite the motor that someone, again, different divisions, 135, 185, but the roughly middleweight equivalent, even if he doesn't have that same kind of motor, he more than makes up for it by his ability to go for the finish. I still wonder, between his susceptibility to the body as well as just what the style is going to look like against an opponent who can sustain their defense and their offense for longer, what that does to him, I don't know.
I'm going to ask you a question. This is ignorant. Do ab muscles give you a better chance at withstanding that? Because he is a little dad bod around the belly for an elite fighter.
That doesn't mean he doesn't have abs. That just means he has weight around the middle, and you can't spot reduce that. So, but yes, stronger abs absolutely makes a difference into your ability to withstand punches. Your entire core really would, but yes, it can help. I don't think he's weak there. I just think some guys have certain kinds of susceptibilities. It's nothing he's not doing in training, but it just could just be the way he is. But we need to see what it looks like when someone doesn't fold as quickly as someone like Pereira. He kind of folded a little bit quickly. He gave him a round of what he had and then never really was able to do a whole lot after that. What if someone has a good 3 rounds of resistance? Now what does it look like?
Right. Pardon the pun here as like a booby prize for Pereira, but do you think, I mean, he really worked on those man pecs. Do you think he has the best rack in MMA, or at least men's MMA if you don't want to go down the other road? Do you think he
Bilal's
has...
a top competitor.
I mean, I
First
got to
team
add
all titties.
I got to add Big E of WWE for sure, and Joaquin Buckley.
Yeah,
Okay?
Joaquin Buckley.
Yeah. I mean,
Insane
that man
tits.
is well packaged.
I mean, he's got
Pereira's well packaged,
yeah,
you know?
A+ tits. I mean,
Yeah, wow. Now let's go to no steroids here. There you go. But in terms of what could be next for the Fluffster, I don't know if he'll get it, but he had some thoughts about a big fight.
Do you think there is anyone in your division that can keep your pace with you?
No. I mean, like, I think would be a great fight realistically would be who I see that mixes it up very well is Duplessis. He mixes it very fucking well, and that's why he's champion right now, you know what I mean? He's a tough motherfucker, and he looks like he's gassed, but he keeps pushing. I would love to fight him. I'm just going to keep climbing the ladder till I can get to him, and just good job to him. Keep up your great work, man.
Israel Adesanya needs an opponent. Is that someone that you'd like to throw your name in the hat and try and fight?
I don't care. I'd fight him.
didn't seem like a ringing endorsement.
Yeah, he didn't really
idea.
slam that home, so to speak, right there. But
he recognizes some of the genius of Duplessis, which is just keep working.
okay, Long Island Luke shot me down for this, but the internet seemed
A date?
No, we're both taking. All right, no, double date. Should we?
Okay.
But I was like, we can't make eye contact during the heat of it at all. I would really want to ask though.
Hashtag swingers.
Yeah, I don't really know what now I know what I want to do.
He shot you down for what?
I saw a lot of people on Twitter saying, "Hey, how about good old the Penn State guy, Bo Nickel?
Bo Nickel.
How about Bo Nickel?
I think he's ahead of Bo Nickel right now. I think Bo needs to get a win.
Is that a trap fight for Bo Nickel's progression or not?
Yes, it could be.
Okay.
It could be. Yes, absolutely.
Because I'm actually interested who you want next for Bo, Izzy, and Fluffy.
When is Bo fighting again? Have we put them on the list?
Top of my head, I want to say MSG. I think he has a fight book.
Yes,
Who is
I
his
think he does.
opponent? Is it like the?
Look it up. I forget.
Is it like the Hermanson level again?
I cannot remember who his opponent is. It's
Paul Craig.
Paul Craig.
Oh, friend of the
Dude,
program.
he should not lose that.
Do you think if Craig loses, he gets cut?
Probably.
How many in a row is that for Craig now? Good old.
Plus,
Long
he's
Island.
changed weight classes a bunch.
Yeah.
Or
We'd let him
not a
back
bunch,
on.
but-
Remember when he golfed in our hat? I was really proud of that.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, it was kind of. Cool.
I think he's got some work to do at 185.
All right,
but
who do you-
Fluffy, I think a Jared Cannonier fight makes sense.
Ooh.
Brendan Allen fight makes sense.
I saw a lot
Marvin Vittori fight makes
people
sense.
Him and Brendan Allen fought already.
Yeah, I know, but on the regionals,
True.
not in UFC.
A lot of people want for Izzy Caio Borralho.
Bahalio, you could
Bahalio, or and then I saw.
think Bahalio's looking for a top
What
5
about
guy. though.
Imavov?
Imavov's already in the top 5 as well, and I saw him and Izzy kind of.
That's what I'm
going
talking
back
about, for
and forth.
Izzy.
Oh, for Izzy, yes, you could do that. Mm-hmm.
Do you think? I mean, it's been a lot of losses. Izzy does need that level to come back and win against first.
Imavov is good.
I'm not saying these guys aren't good, but I'm saying he's not like waiting for the next title shot. Like you got to go back and win a big one against.
Yes, I think he has to dial it back before he can go forward. Yes, that's right. But for Fluffy, I think any of those guys, again, 6 to 8 or 9, something like that. Any of those.
I wish we could see Izzy Strickland too. I would be interested in that. Would you?
It looks like you're going to get Strickland Duplessis too.
That's going to be
which, by the
wonderful,
way,
too.
is also going to be a close
And then the winner
fucking
gets
fight.
Izzy if he beats somebody else, correct?
Maybe.
Or are we just giving no respect to Whitaker versus Chimaev right now?
Probably not much to that either. Yeah.
Because that's going to crash the party
Yeah.
as well right there. All right, good stuff. Let's keep it going on here. Let's go quickly to topic number 4. It was the first non-pay-per-view card in the PBC Prime Video era. It took place in Orlando on Saturday. Your boy BC on the call with Brian Custer and Keith One-Time Thurman. And it was Tim Tszyu not becoming a 2-time champion. The opposite, with his father in attendance for the first time, his Hall of Fame dad Costa, since his pro debut in 2016. Tim Tszyu, we got a lot to talk about here. Got really sent to the woodshed by unbeaten champion
We have the
Bakrahm
video.
Murtazaliev. Here's the video, knocked
Dude,
down
look
4
at that
times.
left hook.
4 knockdowns in what, 3.5 rounds?
Yeah. By the way, he was as much as a minus 850 favorite. Tim Tszyu was heading
Yes.
into this bout.
Plus 425 is what Murtazaliev closed at, but it still shows you. Now, to be fair, Luke, and we'll get into this, Murtazaliev has never looked this good. Like, this was peak performance times 10. But as you can see, Tim, there were a lot of problems here mechanically in terms of his attitude, a lot of that. They threw in the towel there in round 4, and they get the stoppage.
Good stoppage, by the way.
First and
from the
foremost, 2 losses now in a row, although we talked about that first one against Fundora with the cut, and you certainly can write that loss away. But this is 2 damaging losses in a row in terms of physical now. What does this mean for Tim Tszyu's future in your eyes?
This is a disaster. We should say it as plainly as we possibly can. You can forgive the Fundora loss because it was a cut, not just on his face, but on his head, and it bled in ways that are very difficult to control. That fight was a bloodbath. Fundora's tall. The whole thing just kind of really was a tricky moment for him, and he lost a spirited fight, by the way. Wasn't one-sided by any stretch. Fundora was the right guy to win, but okay, fine. This was the get-back fight. By the way, they already had a fight booked for this guy, late December.
It was going to be Erickson Lubin. I know that because he was in the crowd and he told some bloggers after the fight that he just lost his fight. He said it was already booked for December 28th.
Right, so they already were looking past this guy, getting ready for a fight in Australia, I'm assuming, in late December. Now that all goes up in smoke. Now you've lost 2 in a row. But really the best analysis that I saw on this came from Stephen Breadman Edwards. We all love Breadman on this show. And he said this is a real big problem because Tszyu had fancied himself as the kind of boxer who could take whatever was thrown at him and walk guys down because he was made of something different. That was how he approached this fight, to me, in a reckless way, but it's been something of he's kind of fashioned himself as a bit of a boogeyman in this particular weight class, given who he is and the way he fights. Well, now he tried that against Murtazaliev, and it blew up in his face big time. First of all, he took a lot of damage in this fight, even though it was only 2.5 rounds. And then on top of it, whatever illusion you had about yourself got very shattered with this. So it's not just can he get a win back? I'm sure he will. Can he reclaim his identity, not to the public, to himself?
You're saying it's a deeper mental battle than even physical, and it's going to be very physical for the beating he took.
How can you be a guy who walks somebody down when you tried to walk someone down in this fight and you got torn to pieces by him against a guy you were heavily favored to beat? Big questions ahead.
He fought way too arrogantly. And I think that's, that's not just being disrespectful. It's what happened. He wasn't setting up his punches with a jab. He almost had too long of a training camp because remember, he had a full training camp to fight Virgil Ortiz Jr., which would have been a hellacious fight for him in August, pulled out because they didn't clear the cut, then was going to fight Lubin in September. Lubin got hurt and pulled out. So it was a 14-week training camp. So that's to add to what you said about Breadman. When you come in with no excuses, the Fundora fight, you had an excuse. This fight, you have physically no excuses. He actually said, I felt what made it hurt so bad was because he felt so good coming in. But I don't know if it was the added nature of his dad being there, which was such an emotional reconnection for him. And his dad, by the way, I do respect, turns up not when times are great, turns up after the Fundora loss when times were the lowest, kind of helps build his son back up. Didn't train him, but was an on-hand mentor here. And then he loses like this in front of his dad. Now, to be clear, they threw in the towel. He got stopped on his feet, but he was dropped 4 times. He was going to keep fighting until he got KO'd. So it was out cold. So it was good that they threw the towel mercilessly. But mercifully.
Mercilessly.
Them throwing the towel isn't mercilessly. They're showing mercy.
Mercifulness or mercy.
Okay, thank you for the lesson right there. But what I'm saying, Luke, is, and I think you can agree, when you're not setting up your punches, when you're coming recklessly at your opponent, who's, by the way, bigger, 6 foot tall, difficult junior middleweight, and then you're getting countered by the same left hand
over and
on
over
the last
over.
3 knockdowns. This is almost, look, do you remember how he fought against Terrell Gaucher in his U.S. debut, talking about Tim Tszyu in Minneapolis, where he would tell me afterwards, I screwed up. Remember he got dropped in round 1 by Gaucher?
Yes.
He said, I went into Terminator mode, not when I had my opponent hurt. He goes, I screwed up. I went into Terminator mode instantly. That's what he did this time around, Luke. Only the stakes were pretty damn high this time around, coming off that loss and going right back into a title fight. I retweeted what Dan Rayfield tweeted, and I agree. I don't like that people are dunking on him, saying, this was the worst matchmaking decision ever. How did he not get a tune-up fight?
Sergio Mora doing that.
When just a few days before, we were playing up how old school he is and that he's ballsy and he didn't want a tune-up fight. He wanted to go back in. I prefer when fighters behave like this, when he believed in himself so much that he was like, screw that fight. I'm not even going to make excuses. I don't even care what you say about it. It was a loss. I lost to the better man. I'm coming back in this one. And now Tim said this all over again. He said the right things after this one. But Luke, what was unforgivable, tell me if I'm wrong, was the style in which he brought in, that he was going to walk through Murtazaliev like he was nothing. Turns out he was not only something, he was something on the biggest night of his life. Very, very good and dangerous. Like Murtazaliev took Tszyu's biggest punches, countered cleaner, got him the hell out of there. That's where the biggest fear factor is for me on Tim. Not mentally, can he rebuild himself? I think he can, because I think he's cut from a different cloth. Not necessarily physically, how will the damage in both fights. Look, I think he needs time off. He can't keep doing the old school thing of wanting to fight every 3 months after losses like this. But Luke, I think there's something to the connection here between his dad and how he performed. I'm not blaming it on his dad, but something about, I mean, remember, the dad got divorced and moved out in 2012 and started the new family. So they've been separated for a while. In fact, Tim's younger brother, Nikita, who's a pro fighter, was there. It was the first time Dad, Costa, and Nikita had seen each other in person in 10 years. 10 years, dude.
It's like a prison sentence.
So I know that Dad was in their life from a phone call standpoint, and they seem to speak respectful. But don't forget, what was Tim saying in interviews after some of his biggest wins, like Gaucher and some of those? He was saying, "What's my motherfucking name?" Isn't that in some ways, it is telling people, like, don't judge me as Costa Zeus Jr., but it also felt there was some defiance in that. Like, I love my dad, but where is he right now? So his dad showed up, and I listened to every interview that Costa did. He did a lot of great sit-downs this week in Orlando, one with Ben Damon there of Fox Sports Australia. And Luke, he really talked up how between the business he owns, which I believe is a restaurant in Russia, and he's got a bunch of other properties, and the fact that he has 2 small kids in his new marriage, he says he has no time. He said he would be at both of his son's fights, but he has no time, and they had to move all of his stuff for him to be able to go to this fight. And he was just like, it's impossible. I only get 3 days off a year, blah, blah, blah. I think there's some longing here naturally from Tim to not just have his dad around and the influence, but maybe even for his dad to be his trainer. Now, this is me speaking out of pocket, deep dive psychology here, but don't forget, his Hall of Fame dad was a very good trainer who trained Alexander Povetkin to the world title, trained Denis Lebedev at cruiserweight. I'm wondering, Luke, if that's where Tim should go next. When we're talking about how does he rebuild himself, I don't even know if it's possible with his dad living in Russia, although in that long interview with Ben Damon, his dad was basically like, I wish he would come fight in Russia because I have so many connections from my past and success here. We could open up so many doors for him. What do you think about that idea? He's been trained by his I think his uncle forever.
I think you are dodging a more central question. Not that this result gives us an answer. In fact, it doesn't, which is why I do think it's an important question. Are we overrating Tim Tszyu?
Well, that's a conversation we should have now.
We overrating him a little bit. I can believe some of the things you're saying, that this unique moment in time led to results that maybe a different set of focuses and priorities would get him to a different result. Fine. Are we overrating him though?
Well, to answer the final part of that, I think he overplayed his hand in this fight because he was trying to show his dad that he can do this, that he's at that level. So it was poor management on decision-making there, but it does bleed into your question. Are we overrating him? Even from a decision-making standpoint. Well, I do think he made the wrong choice against Gaucher, but he got dropped early. He kind of fought recklessly. He wasn't using movement or much defense or setting up his shots, but he was able to still win that fight and still be dominant in the second half of that. We're overrating him on the decision-making, but I'm not going to say that he's overrated on skill, Luke, because I still don't think we've seen the best of him in his biggest fights when he puts it all together. I think sometimes his strategy has waned a little bit. To his credit, I think he has improved over the last 4 or 5, 6 fights and keeps adding more to it, but I still think there's another level up that he can't hit. Obviously, what's built into that question is he have the right makeup to actually hit that? Is he actually good enough to hit that peak that we all imagine where he's a somewhat dominant defending champion, even against big names in this division? I think when he's wired right and carrying out a game plan, is he better than Terrence Crawford at 154? No, but he's a truly elite fighter who can win a fight against anybody at any time.
I will tell you, I'm less convinced of that today than I was.
I mean, what happened Saturday has a physical and mental possibility to break him. There's no question, or send him, or we can get diminished results moving forward. Did you just air biscuit, just let it out? Yeah. But I think that's the missing link to give a try of training with his dad and maybe moving his life situation and just really buying into what's that next extra level of discipline and love that he can get from that relationship and experience handed down to him that said, okay, before it is too late to reinvent, let's reinvent, but let's do what should have always been there, but our life circumstances didn't allow. I think he needs his dad in his life on an absolutely day-to-day basis, and I wonder what that would do to him to get to that missing level and become the fighter who could go in there against a Terrence Crawford type where you would say, I think he's got a shot. I think that guy's still in him.
I'll say this. I think that is an interesting possibility that I hope it plays out so we can get a more definitive answer to this question about just how good is Tim Tszyu and who needs to be there to get that out of him?
Yeah. All right. Quickly on Bakrahm Murtazaliev. We almost didn't talk about him at all coming in. He delivers maybe the upset of the year, and he did it so dominantly. Luke, you know this division is fun as heck. Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence coming back, Sebastian Fundora, Jermell Charlo wants to come back and get a big fight. Israel Madridov is now legit. You also have unbeaten Virgil Ortiz Jr. and Sergey Boachuk, who just had that great fight of the year contender with Ortiz, is now going to fight Madrimov. Where do you see Murtazaliev on the basis of that performance, being careful not to overrate it, given the Tszyu side of it? Is he a player against any of those names now moving forward?
Again, it's a problem with a fight like this, particularly because I know he was fighting during Ramadan in his last contest where he looked very...
The 29th day of Ramadan.
Yeah, I mean, he looked suboptimal is, I think, the nicest way you could put that, but he looked more than suboptimal here. He looked pretty great. However, BC, it wasn't like he did anything extra special in this contest. He had an opponent who had bad defense, and so what he did was he shut that guy out with a great left hook, but really... boxing basics. I'm not saying it's easy to do what he's doing. I'm saying he had a core foundational game that was plenty good for the moment. That doesn't tell me a whole lot about how he's going to do against the very, very best that this division has to offer if they're fighting him in more careful, concerted ways, not like what Tim Tszyu was doing, was just walking a guy down, hitting, not adjusting, and just keeping...
Yes.
Dude, if you get hit with the same fucking punch through 4 different knockdowns and you don't change your strategy, what are you doing?
So it's
you're
hard to
asking me,
rate
like,
Murtazaliev's power on that.
Murtazaliev, I'm not criticizing him because he did exactly what he was supposed to do. He shouldn't have done anything different. However, doing that doesn't tell us a lot, in my opinion, about how a fight with Virgil Ortiz might go. I mean, he's also a rock'em sock'em guy, but I would assume he'd make some adjustments about defense.
Sure.
I'm just hesitant to say a lot about Murtazaliev, except he did exactly what he was supposed to do, and he got a phenomenal win as a result.
It felt good in that moment, not to see Tszyu go through that, and then you're thinking, wow, is this a setback for PBC? They had big plans for him. Obviously, Tszyu can still come back and make that name, but I felt good for Murtazaliev, for main events, the promo with Kathy Duva that was there. This put his name firmly in the collection to get a big fight. It's like he was already champion, but no, he didn't prove it like this. And whether Tim came in, arrogant, which he did, and walked into a lot of that, Murtazaliev still took big shots early and just stood his ground and showed you. By the way, he averages double the middleweight average in terms of, or junior middleweight average of punches attempted per round. He is a swarm of offense in your face, and I think he's a Chechen guy.
Yes, I think he's certainly Muslim.
Tough as nails,
saying,
this dude.
Allahu Akbar as soon as the fight was over.
Yeah.
He was so elated. I do want to say one thing, though. I one time had a boxing trainer explain this to me. He was like, you will see people get hit in boxing fights. He goes, but it's actually, when you have really good fighters, it's very, very rare to see someone get hit super clean. It does happen, but it tends to happen as like finishing shots.
Yes.
Like the shot that Tank finished off Frank Martin with. That was a very clean punch.
Yep.
Right? Not only did Tim Tszyu get hit clean multiple times in this fight, he got hit cleanly multiple times in this fight with the exact same punch.
Yep.
Dude, this is an all-time bad performance by him, and there's really no other way to say it. I like Tim Tszyu. He's been nice to us. He certainly has action-packed fights. Jesus Christ, he fucked this fight.
Well, let's hear from Tim Tszyu, and we can judge based on his voice here what we're picking out of it.
But just what's going through your mind?
Pornography.
What's happened? Like, what did I get hit with? And couldn't regroup, and I don't know, man. Just shit doesn't go your way, and you just have to bounce back, Like, I was positive after the Fundora, but I got to find more answers with this one. Like, this didn't go according to script. It was a little bit different. I felt unbelievable, I'll be honest with you. Felt unbelievable. I had a great prep, so he got me, man, and he was a better man on this night, and we live and we learn.
I give him a lot of credit for how he
looks devastated.
He does look devastated there. He put out a video today where he sounded more, a little bit more upbeat, and thanked everybody and just said, look, the better man won. I know what went wrong. I want to fix it. And like my dad always told me, like, you get knocked down, you get back up, and we cheer for him. We want him, we want to see any guy go through that, come back from it. But he's going to have to take some time. That's the thing. You got to take some time. And I'm telling you, dude, I think the answer is Costa. I think Tim's got to maybe even move there. Maybe even move to Russia, get in touch with that side, and just go after it. He's got to. I mean, he's got to work on some things. There's got to be more. But he shows that in other fights, though. That's the thing. That's why I'm not going to give up on him because he's shown that, dude, his ability as a counterpuncher, his ability to game plan.
I don't think he is bad. Again, we're asking how good is he? Was he overrated? That's more about like media hype.
Yeah.
Clearly, he is talented, but again, Breadman said this to me one time, and we're not saying that Tim Tszyu is a pound for pound guy, but it's the kind of lesson. He was like, when Bud Crawford beat Spence so badly, he goes, you just can't be a pound for pound guy and lose like that.
Right.
You can't do that. And so for Tszyu to lose, this was even worse than that, against much less credentialed opposition than fucking Bud Crawford. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a bad... Dude, good boxers don't get hit very cleanly, and they definitely don't get hit cleanly with the same punch over the course of 2.5. It's just such a bad loss.
Yeah.
So let's see how he comes back, and then we'll get a fuller picture. Wow, what a setback.
Big time. Luke, do you know when you discover something and you just want to share it with the people you love?
Mm-hmm,
and
yes.
Binge-worthy show or a song that you're bumping on your iPod and you just, I mean, it's just in your head.
I got a new one, Show Me Love by Reef the Lost Cause.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Show Me Love by Robin.
No, Reef the Lost Cause.
All right. Well, you just want people to experience how awesome it is, and we feel that way about Mint Mobile. And people are like, BC, why? Why Mint Mobile? Well, how about this? Mint Mobile offers you premium wireless for $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan. And it's such an awesome deal that there's no way you can keep it to yourself.
BC, how many times have you looked at your phone bill, your cell phone bill, the next month and been like, why is this so high? Why do I have so many fees? Would you not agree? $15 a month is about as good as it's going to get in all of telecom.
You can't blame that on Biden.
You certainly can't. And Mint Mobile is here to give you a great deal on your phone and phone pricing. And by the way, guys, you can use your phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number with you if you got to switch from some other kind of provider, along with all, of course, your existing contacts. And BC, all plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. So here's what's going to happen, guys. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/combat. That's combat with a K. That's mintmobile.com/combat. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/combat.
$45 upfront payment required. That's equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabyte on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. All right, Luke, quickly, let's go into...
do we have time for this, or do you want to punt till Friday?
I think we should punt to Friday. So we were going to set the stage for all things UFC 308, Ilia Topuria, Max Holloway, and much more. But Friday, we have the real estate. We can go 2 hours ham on that card.
Yeah, I got to tell you, 308, the card, I don't have any wood to knock on. Morning wood. I'll just knock on that. It's the best fight in MMA. The card itself, pretty great. What kind of score, Long Island Luke, on paper would you give the main card for 308?
I mean, the fact that it's an afternoon card, it's automatically an 8. Then you look at the card itself, I'll give it a 9.
Dude, I love afternoon cards.
I got to tell you, an entire month of mostly afternoon cards has been awesome.
You sent it to me. Bob Arum was on Dan Rayfield's Big Fight Weekend podcast, and he said that the Saudi cards moving forward will only be in Saudi.
So apparently, though, I was on vacation for this one, the Madrimov-Bud Crawford fight. That was a Riyadh season event in Los Angeles. Apparently, it was a financial flop. They didn't make any money.
How could I guess that? It was only a 12-hour show.
Yeah, it was only a 12-hour show with Eminem, and it probably didn't sell that great. And so apparently what Turkey is now under orders to do from his handlers is that if you're going to have a Riyadh season event, it has to be in Riyadh.
No, I don't want all my combat pay-per-views to be on that side of the world because it takes away from the organic in-your-country build when you got a big fight in Vegas or L.A. or New York and you got press tours and you're building it up. I don't want to remove that element of it. But if you told me, hey, BC, every fight moving forward's got to be in Saudi, but you'll get a main event time start of 5 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah.
Even 6 p.m., even 7 p.m. Let's go.
I'm taking that 10 times out of 10.
Let's go.
10 times out of 10, I'm taking that.
That's just being old pieces of shit talking, right?
Dude, I just don't like going to bed at 5 a.m.
Well, I don't like having to come up with my sharpest analysis when I'm writing a post-fight column at 2:33 a.m. Yeah, it's just like I'm a lot better at 6 p.m. Yeah.
Yeah. I
There you
prefer
go.
it significantly.
Long Island Luke, even you being a younger degenerate, you got to support this.
I'm all for the earlier cards. I don't love like this one's at 2 p.m. I like it a little later, but I'm not going to
The
complain.
boxing ones, because you only really care about the main and co-main, or even just the main, and those are all like 5 p.m. So you get the whole day to just fuck off, and then as the sun's going down or pretty close to it, you know, crack a beer, and then turn on your Stream East, and then
How
go
about
from there.
the Tim Tszyu card that I was a part of? That was started at 8 p.m. Eastern, main event done by 10:15 p.m., 10:22
I'll take
p.m.
that too.
something
That's
like
not
that.
so bad.
It was just not a lot of hype package. Just get right
If
to
you
the
can
fights.
be in bed before midnight, I think you're winning.
I know. See, I know everyone's long complaining about the pace, and then the Turkey era, the boxing cards have gotten even longer with ridiculous extended pace. The zone is very. I mean, Showtime used to have some long pay-per-views too. But if we could just condense it, we don't need all the preview content. People like people always say, if I bought the pay-per-view, I already know. You're not selling the pay-per-view to me now. Imagine if they just tightened all of these shows and DAZN didn't need 3 separate announced teams in various parts of the arena, and we just cut to the core of it. Do you think over time that creates more fans and holds them, or is it more just a annoying preference for us who watch everything anyway?
I think there are times to lengthen the broadcast. I think that people do it way too often. I tend to think, in general, not always, less is more.
Okay.
Less is more.
Okay.
Give us a quality product at a good pace and do that consistently. And then when you finally get a really big one and you want to really lean into it, then you can.
Is that why you were always against 2-hour morning combats? Or is it just because at that point we're 3 days a week, so you're automatically over?
I definitely feel like it's not that I was against 2-hour morning combats as a rule. I was against it because it was longer than it needed to be given the original format. But, here we are. So who gives a shit?
People need us.
I think we need the paycheck.
You're supposed to say, I think we need them, and you don't.
No, of course we need them too, but I also need to. Tukey needs braces.
She needs shoes.
Yet,
yeah, soon. All right, let's go to our next.
Hey, hold on. Are you doing Halloween this year?
I haven't even talked about it with my wife, nor do I know if I'm home then. I gotta see what's going on. I don't have any schedule. I don't have any fights on the book now. So.
My daughter's 5, so this is like.
Yeah, I mean, my kids are 16. They already have their own plans. I always tell my wife, let's just close the house down. Let's pull the curtain. She's like, no, you gotta be. But then we get 2 kids anyway, so 2 or 3 kids at most.
Dude, I had an asshole neighbor who would turn his sprinklers on and all his lights off. Are you that motherfucker?
No, I just had the asshole neighbors who would give you wooden nickels or would give you fruit.
Like my dad, Roy Rogers coupons.
Yeah, the popcorn balls, which I think is low class. My wife stands by it as being solid. Popcorn balls are so stale and disgusting.
They're okay. It's a bottom tier kind of.
Old ladies would give you Mary Janes, and
it's a Mary Jane.
That really hard butterscotch candy that
yeah.
by the end of it, it tastes good, but you break all your teeth to get to that point.
No. Well, Tukey is going to go as Princess Peach from Mario.
Oh, nice.
And I have to go as Mario.
You look more like Luigi in that jacket.
I do look more like Luigi, but I have a Mario.
Okay.
Thing, and then I don't know what my wife and dog are gonna do. But
wow, you guys are really going all out. I mean, you're being a good dad.
I'm trying to be a good dad, bro.
There you go.
Good
I appreciate that. Let's go to our next segment, which is giving the fans voice, and that's called DMs from Donks.
Every time I literally don't even have any interest in talking about it, but
neither does the audience, by the way.
Every time I say the word pornography, BC gets really upset.
I think we're past that, Luke, okay?
You do get upset.
We gave you the opportunity Sunday night to jump on social media on X and IG at Morning Combat. So here are your questions. Number 1 from z.firm.esp or z.frm, not like anyone cares. Who poses a bigger threat to John Jones, Ngannou or Aspinall? Because it definitely isn't that prehistoric fossil. Stipe. Dude, I hope Stipe gets in the best shape of his life and knocks John out.
I'm telling you, Stipe winning would be so fucking funny.
Not because I hate John Jones or anything like that, but I think it would be funny that UFC waited this long and stretched it out. And what if it flips on them? And for good old firefighter Stipe to take all of our bullshit on these podcasts for all this time?
The problem is Stipe's catching a lot of strays because it's not the fight to make, and so people are going a little bit overboard with it.
Imagine if he just cracks a big right early.
I'm telling you, nothing would be funnier than Stipe. It would be awesome if Stipe wins.
What would happen next?
They'd redo it. No fucking way. No fucking way on earth.
Okay, and then John retires if he wins the rematch.
That's right.
Oh, you mother effer.
That's right. No fucking way on earth, dude. If you get wrecked by a 42-year-old off for 3 years, hasn't won in 5, Stipe Miocic, there's no way John's retiring on that. Not gonna happen. And you're not gonna beat fucking Tom Aspinall if you can't beat that guy.
Man, Tom keeps losing all of these scenarios, including the one I want, where Poatan just cuts the line and we do some ridiculous.
I'm okay with that.
Fight.
But you're asking who has a better shot?
Yeah, who is a bigger threat to John? Is it Francis or Tom?
I think it's actually Francis. I think that Tom is a threat, but there's so much unknown about him especially if John is clever. John's clever. And if the fight needs to go long for John's benefit, he can make it that way. And whereas Francis has, dude, we've seen Francis in 5-round fights. Dude, Tom is untested against elite competition past round 2, period.
Could John, who took down DC, could John take down Francis at will?
I think at his peak, he could have. I don't know what current state John Jones can do.
Oh, dude, I'm not making this up, Long Island Luke. Have you seen shirtless John Jones recently?
He does look jacked.
He's not fat like he was against Ghana, I don't
No,
think.
he looks jacked. I saw that. He looks
not as jacked as Rakic. Did you see that picture?
Rakic's back looks like a fucking turtle shell.
Backzilla. Yes.
He looks like a fucking turtle shell. So I'll say this. We don't know because we don't know much about John because he doesn't fucking compete.
He fought for like 22 seconds at heavyweight. I mean, it's not his fault.
Cyril Gane, let me switch stances into the guy who's going to take me down. Yeah, great decision there.
Let's go over to Mohaya Bro. Is this one of the best MMA comeback stories? What other good MMA comeback stories come to mind? So he's obviously referencing Francis. We already talked about how good of a comeback story this
Cruz
is.
Coming back from all those injuries and all those knee surgeries. It's not the same.
Yes.
But for a professional career, that was really
I didn't think
difficult.
he beat TJ, but when he beat TJ, I was like, oh my God, this guy came back and did all the way back.
And his interviews afterwards saying things like, it wasn't even about the belt. I don't even care about the belt. It was about what I could prove to myself and what I could show. And he had the right mentality the whole time. That was a big one. St. Pierre coming back's a little bit of a different one.
With the age and the moving up in weight, 100%.
That's Long Island Luke, what are we forgetting here?
Do Bronx.
Just turning his career
Oh,
around?
you mean like overall turning it around? I'm talking about like one big comeback performance, though.
Frank Mir from the motorcycle?
Big one, yes, because he had some shitty performances along the way. And then it was against Anthony Hardonk where he really began to turn the tide.
just Randy rebuilding himself at heavyweight against Sylvia.
Yep, against Sylvia is another big one like that.
One of the greatest comeback. Man, I love Randy. I wish the UFC loved him too. His story needs to be told. You know what? If anybody's story outside of Francis deserves a movie, give me Randy.
Yep.
Or did he wasn't on the Gen 6 staircase?
I
right?
think I don't think he was on the steps. I think he's Gen
Pat,
6. Yeah. I think he's Gen 6 adjacent. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What do you make about his the editorial he did on Twitter about grass on the field? I mean, it's not whether I don't want to know what you prefer because I don't really. That's a little gross to me.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know did he just not realize the rest of the world was going to see that, or in his mind is that like an acceptable conversation?
Like we live in an unrestrained age where if you're the kind of person to say outrageous things, this is a good time for you.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, but Randy doesn't do that normally. This is just
Normally,
a hole in
right.
his
we
defense.
live in an age where you can just say that stuff now, and there's really very little consequence to it, which could be good or bad depending on your perspective.
All right, man. No, do you think if Rousey would have come back under any circumstances since the Amanda fight, it would have gone poorly?
Probably. I think she's.
Do you think what she's saying about too many concussions is real? Like if she gets hit once, she's
a comeback story for her would be gigantic.
Okay.
Gigantic. But I honestly think that she's, and I'm not trying to be disparaging. I am not. She's cooked.
And Kane, you don't see any circumstance where Kane fights again, or should?
I think he could, depending on what is available to him and what kind of sentencing. I mean, it seems to me, I don't know how long his sentence will be, but it seems to me like a foregone conclusion. He will go to jail for some amount of prison, I should say, for some amount of time.
Imagine if he just came out jacked as
just a Floyd. You ever hear what Floyd Mayweather did?
Oh my dude! Here I saw what he looked like. Remember, he had let his hair grow out.
No. But did you hear what he did?
Yeah.
No, more than that. So what he would do was he would assign each for clubs, for diamonds, whatever.
How he would do the amount
workout, and then he would just go through a deck. I tried it once. It's fucking hard as shit. Okay.
What did he say? He did his record for push-ups in a row.
He would do 3 decks a day.
Yes, but I think he said specifically he did. Was it 300 or 150 push-ups in a row or something?
I don't believe that. I would want to see that. I've seen guys do 70 plus in a go, and these were some of the most jacked motherfuckers I've ever seen in my life. So I just don't believe that.
Dude, he was so big when he got out of jail.
But he was definitely.
He was only in there for like 2 months, right?
But if you've never done the Floyd Mayweather deck of cards workout, just pick clubs is squats, diamonds are push-ups, fucking whatever, hearts are pull-ups, whatever it is. And then do a whole deck of cards, it will fuck your shit up. Trust me.
Yeah, we used to play drinking games like that too. It always F's your ass up for sure. Let's hear from World's Worst Hero, who says, if you had to create an all Brazil team with active MMA fighters throughout MMA in each weight class, who are you donks choosing?
You
What
had to
does
create
he mean
an
by
all Brazil team.
Well,
with
I don't
active
understand
MMA
the
fighters
question.
through MMA in each weight class. Okay, so like, who's your top
All
Brazil-
time? We're talking about all time?
Yeah, so who's your top all-time Brazilian heavyweight? It's got to be Nogueira, right? Who am I forgetting? It's got to be Nogueira.
Yeah, I mean, how far away down do you have to go before you get Bigfoot Silva in there?
Nogueira had a much better career than Bigfoot Silva.
I wasn't making that argument. I'm saying how far down do you have to go before the Bigfoot
he
makes
had
our
some
team?
big wins. I mean, that win over Overeem was big. Dude.
Oh, he had a run.
Fucking Bigfoot Silva beat Fedor and Overeem.
And didn't he fight for some form of the title twice?
He stopped them both. Yes, he fought Kane. Kane demolished him. But yes, light heavyweight.
Vanderlei?
Vanderlei's up there. I mean, the honorable
Glover
mention to
Teixeira?
Renato Sobral, Glover Teixeira, all-time Brazilians at light heavyweight. I'm trying to think.
Rogerio?
Yes, Little Nog, although he wasn't.
Riding his brother's coattails.
Yeah,
very fair.
Ricardo Arona, you could throw in there as well.
Vitor Belfort?
Vitor Belfort, you throw in there. Let's see, at middleweight.
Shout out Maheda.
At middleweight, it's obviously Anderson Silva.
Shogun.
By the way, but also don't forget Shogun's there. No, Shogun was 205. Shogun was 205.
That's right. That's
His
right.
brother Ninja was 185.
That's right. I was thinking Dan Henderson was floated between two
But also,
divisions.
don't forget, inside people, this is the most slept-on talent in MMA. You want to tell you the most slept-on guy?
Wait, Shogun is floating between two divisions, right?
He did, but I mean, really,
his
best work is 205 by a million miles.
Without question.
Murillo Bustamante. Murillo Bustamante, if you never saw him fight, he was a former middleweight champion in UFC, very good fighter. At welterweight, I'm trying to think, who's the best Brazilian ever at welterweight? That's a tougher one.
Besides Michel Pereira before moving up?
I don't know the answer to that one off the top of my head. That's a tough one. Charles Oliveira, 155 would be a good choice. You could go with.
Don't forget about Jose Aldo at 145.
145.
And then don't forget about Renan Barão at 135.
135. And then flyweight.
Don't forget about RDA.
RDA at 155.
Damian Maia at welterweight.
Damian Maia 170 you could go with. And then at flyweight, who's the best Brazilian ever? Like Pequeno Nogueira. You could go Pequeno Nogueira.
Well, I also like that guy Figueiredo too.
Figueiredo, Pantoja. Pantoja's putting together a little bit of a run here.
And then we got to add Cyborg, Amanda.
Cyborg, dude, they've got Brazil has the two best women's fighters ever by a considerable distance. Who are we forgetting anywhere in that list, Long Island Luke?
This became named.
I was trying to think of
Brazilian
some strawweights right now. I'm kind of blanking.
I bet you were.
Claudia.
No, because we were going to the women. You said
Claudia.
Claudia Gadelha?
Gadelha.
She was a great strawweight.
She was ranked number 2 for like 5 years.
Was she ever champion?
No, but she fought for the belt.
Okay. I mean, most of the people we've mentioned have been champion.
Okay, then Jessica Andrade.
I was just going to say
Andrade you can put up in that list. Yeah. Dude, Brazil dominates. Like, they fucking dominate. They're great. They're great.
Finally, from M Porter 440, who are 5 guests you'd like to have on the RSD casting couch in 2025? Matt Snyder, thumb up or thumb down? Will we have an RSD couch in the calendar year of 2025? Oh, he's on the spot. He says yes. He says 2 thumbs up.
Yes?
He did. So if RSD does make a return next year like we thought it would and are hoping or push, I mean, look, we're eventually going to get our own studio to have that kind of stuff happen again.
I hope.
Who are 5 guests? We've had a gap since we've done this. So who are 5 people that we would love to have on the couch besides Ioana?
Asa Akira.
I mean, for real here, okay?
Boy, I don't know.
You want Ilia and you want to do it solo.
Yeah, Topuria for sure.
I would love to get Izzy in that setting. I think
sure.
it would be very interesting.
That's a good one.
Not Sean Strickland.
Probably not. Probably skip that one.
Raw Dog Royval.
Yes.
I do like Royval, yes.
Cheeto Vera.
Hold on. Are there any women we're forgetting? And I'm being not in a stupid sexual way, but like a real way. Like we're naming all
We're forgetting
dudes
many,
here.
yeah. I
Who?
mean, Rose, I think, would be so interesting.
Nah, not that interested.
Wow.
It sounds like I'm insulting them. I'm not insulting them, but for an RSD, no.
Okay. Fiona.
Apple?
Eileen Perez.
She might twerk on the couch, but that's not really what I'm going for.
I wasn't going for that either. I just thought she'd have good stories.
Well, I just think that's how she I think on her driver's license, it's just a picture of her twerking. Like, it's her party trick. She does it every room she goes into. I don't know the answer to that one. That's a tougher one.
Okay, is there any boxer that you'd love that from like a personality standpoint? Like Caleb Plant, he just was with Andre Ward. I'd love
Caleb.
Rolly Romero.
Devin Haney.
Yes.
No, I could skip Rolly.
Skip you.
He'd be perfect.
Yeah,
RSD.
I think we'd leave you at home for that episode.
No.
It'd be me and Nosita hosting.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that shit. I mean, he's going to get up there and just make some comments about God only knows who.
You can get Bryce Mitchell if you want that.
I'm good on that. Thank you, though.
Okay.
Boots Ennis, if we could get him to relax. He's a tough interview if he's not really relaxed,
Okay.
doesn't want to do it. I don't know. I don't know about the rest of them.
All right. Well, hopefully let's get the couch first, and then we'll,
Yeah.
get the studio, get the couch. I got one more segment for you.
Hold on. We skipped a DM.
Did we really?
One
Can you
more.
play it, please? I'm sorry about that. Excuse me. Telvin Kipapa, Hawaii's finest, Luke.
Oh, did you see the World Series is going to be Dodgers
I
fucking Yankees?
know.
Dude, I saw the most amazing Shohei Ohtani stat. Ready for this?
Yeah.
10% on average of all of Japan watches his games at 9 a.m. in Japan, right? So for the last game, it was 9 a.m. and 9 a.m. on a Saturday in Japan. 10% of the entire country was watching. I think it was like 12 million people. And here it was 7 million people, which is like, obviously a lot, but not really the same kind of proportion. But that's not the most impressive part. The most impressive part was the Dodgers have all kinds of ad inventory around the stadium that they can sell, and they sold a bunch to Japanese companies. They sold out apparently like immediately. The Japanese are so on top of the Shohei Ohtani thing that various Japanese companies are buying ad inventory at stadiums that have a lot of games with the fucking Dodgers.
Smart.
When they're visiting as like the outside team, because they couldn't even buy back in LA at all. That's how popular that guy is. He's ridiculous. Also, Yankees fans. Are there any Yankees fans here? Yeah. Biggest pieces of shit on planet Earth.
Chill.
No, this team is almost more likable than the normal. Maybe because they've been gone. Every time the Yankees have been gone so long, I then go from hater to like when they won it. The last years of
09
when they had the core four, they were all old as shit. I was cheering for them that year.
Fuck the Yankees and their stupid fans who are all grotesque humans, all of them, with the exception of Juan Soto, former Washington National, who
I heard
got
he
away.
could be a Met eventually. That's what I heard.
Soto?
Somebody
that's right,
told me
because
that.
are the Yankees going to sign Soto, even though he sent him to the fucking World Series?
When they win the World Series, they're definitely going to re-sign him. But,
Okay.
I mean, that big home run could have changed things.
I think it did.
Who are you cheering? Oh, you're cheering for the Dodgers. Yeah, it's a
No,
classic
I don't like the
matchup.
Dodgers either. It was kind of one of those things where you just hope it's like like the end of Inglourious Basterds, where they all get shot from an elevated position.
Oh boy, did you see Bob Arum said he was inspired by how many of Ohtani fans regularly fly to the U.S. to see him? That's why he's going to put Inoue in trying to put him in like T-Mobile Arena for like a big one early next year. And then they were also Dan Rafael was also talking to him about the big Japanese super fight with bantamweight champ Junto Nakatani, who's like entering pound for pound rankings lately. And Bob said that's a Tokyo Dome fight. And by the way, the only fights in Tokyo Dome history are the two from Tyson in 89 and 90, including Buster Douglas, and the recent Inoue versus Luis Neri fight.
I don't watch enough.
That's the only boxing in that stadium's history.
That's insane. I don't watch enough baseball. How good are the Dodgers relative to the Yankees? Like, who's a better team?
If I'm being honest, I've only really watched the playoffs. But yeah, Dodgers are like in the middle of a dynasty right now.
They beat a great Padres team.
Dude,
early.
I saw Ohtani when he came to DC. He played the Nats. This motherfucker hit a single, double, triple. No, he missed one of the three. He didn't hit a single, double, and a triple, but he got two of the three and a fucking home run. Like, he's ridiculous.
All right, we got to get through this shit because I got to catch a bus, Luke. I'm going to try the bus today.
You're going to catch the bus?
I'm actually going to try
From
it
where?
today. From the
Port Authority?
Port Authority.
Bitch,
yeah.
you're going to get a communicable disease.
Well,
from
I
that
mean,
thing.
you should see my training experience, especially the changeover in New Haven. It's dicey. Let's go over to Have You Seen This Shit, where I collect all the weird videos of the week and try to make Luke laugh. Let's watch it.
Opeth did not sound that good last time.
No, remember the 80s, Luke? They always had weird commercials and stuff that you would never see today. Let's watch this one.
With AIDS, I ate less, so the weight came off. To help keep it off when I sometimes want things loaded with calories, AIDS helps put me in control. I've tried fad diets, powders, pills. Still, my weight's been up and down like a yo-yo until the AIDS plan taught me how to take off weight and help keep it off.
Let the AIDS plan teach you how to take off weight and help keep it off. Try peanut butter AIDS.
Unfortunately,
okay, that last one, try the peanut butter AIDS, that got me. I have to say, you will lose weight with AIDS.
Yes,
that
I was
is
going to
true.
say, that's a morbid thought. Luke, do you ever wonder what it would be like if Titanic happened during Gen Z times? Look at that closer right there, Luke. Look at that guy. Hey, I'm cold. Yeah, I'm dead, but I'm happy. That's the difference, right?
I wonder what flavor that is.
Luke, Brendan Schaub was in the news this week. for challenging Nate Diaz's manhood after Diaz sent him to hell saying, Brendan, the big old pussy shop. We got, ooh, buddy, I probably got 20 pounds on you, so not too far off. I'll snap your neck, blah, blah, blah. He's trying to set up a grappling match and went out to say, have one of your handlers read this tweet and get back to me.
By the way, not a bad zing.
I don't think Nate's going to respond by scheduling a CGI matchup. I think he's going to run up. CJI. I think he's going to run up, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Nate Diaz plan is run up and get done up. That's the whole thing.
Do you think this is not...
What precipitated this?
I don't know. I wonder if, because do you remember they had that backstage thing?
Mayweather McGregor.
At Mayweather McGregor.
It was 2016.
But I wonder if it was Schaub coming out after saying all the comments about Shane Carwin and getting a lot of headlines from that. I wonder if that triggered it, maybe. I don't know. But I don't know. Like, should he be escalating this? Is this nothing a double leg couldn't figure out, in your opinion?
I tell you what, like, there's been a lot of people who have picked on him in the last few years, and
I thought the Carwin stuff was legitimate and him being a good person.
I did too, and I do think that people underestimate. Like, he doesn't clap back in general, but I think that you'd be surprised, Brendan. He's going to get over on somebody. I don't know if it's going to be Nate, but you're going to see he's going to get over on somebody.
Oh wow!
Someone's going to poke the bear.
Somebody's going to win a truck. Right? I mean, it could be an employee of the show, but somebody will. Hey, let's go over to, I'm kidding. Do you remember the double rainbow guy? Remember that guy got real high and he watched...
He was like, it's a fucking rainbow.
It's like double rainbow. It was like watching a baby born. Conor McGregor saw the harvest moon recently and had the same reaction.
Nah, here. The phone isn't doing this justice, folks, yeah? Get out and have a look at that moon quick.
Moon.
Is it... The moon is on the bleeding low level. It's like the moon... Surely the moon's going to go up. Look at the thing. Have a look at that moon, folks. Quick. LJ, win it if you can.
I don't know if I want him to cut the substance
That is the maddest.
No,
it's
I
like
think
the
you're
sphere.
misunderstanding this.
It's like I'm looking at the sphere, yeah? What?
What am I misunderstanding?
What the
He is not...
fuck?
I mean, I'm not saying he's not high here. What I am saying is nothing tells me...
What is with these phones, man? Look at that moon quick, everyone, yeah? Tell us. Is it going up?
Nothing
It's actually going
says-
up. That's usually the moon's up there, like.
He is more
It's down
of an
there.
old
It's
man
it's at
than
the eye
this.
level.
This was the first
And it's
time I've ever
huge.
seen him and been like, this
And it's
fucker
going
is
up.
old now.
Yeah, look at that moon.
You
see
should
that?
know. You watch birds, Luke.
This is what I'm trying to tell you. Like, out of nowhere, I'm like, yo, these motherfucking birds are interesting. If you're looking at the moon and you're like, guys, have a look at the fucking moon, you are old.
Luke, are you a fan of Taco Tuesday?
I love Taco Tuesday.
Would you eat it here?
Gynecology restaurant. Taco Tuesday. Well,
It's only weird if you make it weird, Luke, okay?
yeah, I don't know if this is the kind of taco I'm going for
All
in
right.
general.
You notice how no celebrities are coming
On
out
Tuesday?
and supporting Diddy except for one?
Stevie Wonder defends Diddy. I didn't see anything illegal. He did write songs in the key of life. I'm gonna give.
He may have heard or felt something illegal.
Yeah,
but
I'm gonna give Stevie the benefit of the doubt.
Okay, Luke, head to the barber for the hottest hairstyle. They call it the cock out.
Just leave this child on the side of the road. He doesn't need parents.
Halloween is here. Speaking of that cocked out look, Luke, what do you think about this? I think this guy wins Halloween in 2025. I also think we played that on like the first episode of the show's history, but it's so good.
This is genius.
I have played this one before.
This is genius.
That's
and
incredible.
I give this a 10 out of 10. And he's got toilet paper? Yeah, 10 out of 10.
All right, what do you rate this, which you can find at your local Spirit?
Okay. Okay. I cannot believe that day of trauma has turned into this. If you had told me 20 years ago, however long it's been now, 23 years ago.
Yeah.
That like, in September of 2024, you're going to be doing basically the equivalent of the time of a radio show, and your partner's going to be making fun of this day every single time.
I think I was pointing out how awful that costume was, to be very honest with you.
That too, yes.
Yeah. Can't wait for September 11th. We've heard that before on a boxing broadcast.
That is your catchphrase.
Hey, remember that weird lady I showed you that started eating her own body because it was made out of cake?
Yeah.
Watch this. Wonder what she's like, Luke, in her personal life.
Send her to the gulag. You're just going to cut the fucking wall?
Made out of cake, Luke.
Yeah, please. Are you just going to eat shoes, babe? Just
I think over time she'll win you over and turn you on.
Someone should just drown her.
Oh my God. All right. Hey, shoeies are one thing. What about this? This takes it to a new level.
Is that her prosthetic?
Yes.
You know what? BC just slipped me a note. You know what it said? It said would bang.
Yeah.
BC, that's very, open to new possibilities. I'm proud
Luke,
of you.
time for your KOs of the week. And the first one comes from LFA. What do you know about Shamid Khan Magomedov?
Not much, but that was a nice double jab right hand. And there's another one.
That's
Good
2 KOs in the same KO.
Jesus. And that referee's wearing 9 shades of black. Look at this motherfucker. Look at that. Look at him.
Is that a double KO? Do you get twice the...
Let's see. Bop. Nah, he's still kind of up. No. Now it is. Yeah.
Good Lord. All right, let's go over to RCC 20. This is a Kaposa special. They call him Akmalan Mamedov.
Yo, look at that. Look at the gloves. Look at the floor of the cage.
Yeah. Watch this finish here, Luke.
Oh, dude, if they walk past you, that's when the problems begin.
Jeepers. KO of the week nominee here from the skateboarding halfpipe.
Oh, shit.
That's a scorpion.
Dude, that's the Rene Higuita fucking kick there.
One more nominee for KO of the week.
Oh! 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 Yo, is that some kind of fucking drone? What
Not
the fuck?
Not a 9/11 joke. That is awful. Wow, that is
I wasn't even
awful.
thinking about 9/11, but the fact that was top of mind for you says a
well,
lot.
unfortunately. And then we have one more in this category, Luke. This is boxing, but it turned into kickboxing. Oh.
Wait. This was not kickboxing?
That is boxing.
He just said, fuck it. Bah, hold that.
Oh, my God. I think that's a DQ where I come from, right? Did you see this interaction on the Anik and Florian pod when they had Dominic Cruz on between J.A. and Dom, who I love when they work together because they always have like that high energy, like they hate each other?
They do seem to hate
Watch
each other.
this.
Earlier, we had Keith Peterson, Dominic Cruz talk on this show. We
Don't
had a
do it,
legitimate
Dom.
conversation about.
Don't listen, Dom.
So Dominic Cruz told me to do better publicly.
Don't listen.
Since that
I
fight,
know
we
where you
had it.
stand. Like, you want to save fighters. You're one of those that thinks we need to be saved, you know?
Me?
I don't need your fucking help. I got it. Stay out of my fucking way. Let me make my fucking money. The fuck out of here. Stop. All of you. We need to save them from weight cuts. Weight cuts are bad. What about fighting is healthy? What are we talking about? This is so ignorant.
You're
Don't
right.
save me. Leave me alone. Let me make my fucking money.
Dude, that's aggressive, but it's also part of why I love Dom because he's like half crazy and half right a lot, you know?
If you let fighters determine the rules of fighting, it would be to the death half the time. You can't. That's why we don't listen to them all the time. Sometimes, but they don't get the final say.
But he's like a really smart fighter who had a style that didn't take a lot of damage and all that. And
You can be a really smart fighter and have really bad ideas.
But what do you think about that idea that it is America? People can...
No, I think, once again, if you let fighters determine the rules of fighting, it would be to the death. And that's not a good thing.
A couple more and then I can catch my bus. The New England Patriots have a new left tackle. What do you think of old number 69 there, Luke?
I mean, just look at this fucking specimen with the jizzcock jersey and a haircut from 1973.
I give him points for trying that, all right? Do you ever play the game called, do you ever do this in the elevator with your kids, Luke?
Dance, and dance, and dance, and dance, and dance. Ah!
Tukey has started punching me in the crotch.
Oh, that's not funny, Tooks.
Yeah,
Not funny.
And I tell her I don't enjoy that.
All right, there was a hurricane that came through Florida. We hope everybody's okay in our viewership. This guy celebrated it, Luke.
You know what?
That's called a hurricane dab right there.
You know what? It wasn't like he had a job to get to anyway.
This looks like me after a perfect week on main card.
All right, I got 2 more for you, Luke. You know what I hate when putting 2 things together that don't belong? Cigarettes and pregnancy.
Hey, don't be smoking cigarettes if you're pregnant. What's wrong with you?
I'm not pregnant. I'm fat, you fucking asshole.
Okay, that's fucking hilarious.
And finally, Luke, you ever see one of those rock mats you can walk on that like give you inner peace?
I just got this mat off of TikTok because I saw some guy that was like enjoying it too much. So we're gonna try it.
All right, I want to try it.
Oh. Okay. Oh.
That's our final episode.
You have the nerve to be mad at me for shoehorning in silly pornography talk at places, and now you show me a young man squirting.
But that was very subtle. The comedy made it subtle. You know?
Subtle.
Yeah,
That's
very
what subtle means to you.
Made it subtle there. That's your
First
ish.
of all, that was fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
But also disturbing.
I got to cut your bus. That's all the shit we got for this
I got
week.
tickets for the bus.
I know. Well, this is an experiment. This is an experiment. See, the bus seats are tighter, so people kind of like lean on you. But if there's no traffic, you can get there quicker and cheaper.
You know what's weird? In the United States, if someone sits on a bus or like a mass transit seat and then they get up, you know, if you sit down, it's like warm, obviously.
Yeah.
I find that gross.
Do you smell the seat first?
No. I find that gross. But in Colombia, that's considered like a prized opportunity.
Oh, to get warm.
To get a warm seat that someone's been. I want everyone to know, if you sit in the seat after me, just like this seat, I've been farting in it for a long time.
There you go. Well, that's Luke's bowels. We want to thank Long Island Luke Nocita for his work there on the 1s and 2s.
Yes, thank you, Long Island Luke.
Maybe you got anything to say? Probably not, right?
Yeah, guys, go like and sub to my YouTube channel, Main Card.
Well, I
Man.
didn't say
went
plug
perfect
your
this
show.
week.
Yeah.
We're going perfect again next week. Let's go.
Who are you taking in Ilia and Max?
It's early.
I'm going to take the over-under. I think I'm going to do alternate total rounds, do over 2.5.
I think it's a good bet.
We will be back Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern, here on these YouTubes at Morning Combat for our paid Friday edition, where we are going to hit 308 really, really hard. It is Max versus Ilia, or maybe the other way around, and a great card along with that. Follow us on social, buy our merch at morningcombat.store, and get 10% off right now using our code of LIVE10. Shout out to Mint Mobile, right? $45 a month, not bad.
No, 15.
$15 a month. That's fantastic.
Can't beat that with a stick.
You can't even beat that with a bat.
That's
Hammer
right.
can't touch that.
That's
That's
right.
such a great line, right? Damn. All right, for Luke Thomas on
Try
BC.
the peanut butter AIDS.
Yeah, don't forget, get some of this Let's Effing Go, right? Put it in. You gotta get it right here, right? You gotta get it right here. All right, let's
They're
effing go.
actually not a sponsor, and this is expired.
I like it. We out of here.
Bye.